Everybody, is it giving you a choice, an option?
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure you hit okay on that.
Where do we hit?
Got it. You said got it. You have to say it.
Oh, got it.
Okay, I'm going to share screen.
Okay.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
you?
No, it's
Yes.
not me.
When you were
Does that
young.
look like me?
We are
I
that.
thought you when you were young.
All right. So welcome for the Westchester Community College review class. This is not part of the original course that you signed up for. This is outside of that course, still inside the school. So there's a few things that we can talk about here that we can't talk about inside in a classroom environment. So you can ask me questions and I could talk about things that I normally can't talk about during that 75-hour class. Therefore, I just wanted to go over something with you that's very important. This production cannot be reproduced or copied. I'm recording it and I'm sharing it with you. It cannot be recorded. I created this, all the slides that I gave you throughout the class, I created, and I gave them the rights to them to Westchester Community College. So Westchester Community College obviously charges a lot of money for this program. And if you were to record this and share that recording with somebody, I would not be the one that would be upset or coming after you. It would be State of New York University, SUNY, WCC that would be suing you for copyright infringement. So I'm just letting you know that this is for your purposes. I give you a link to it. Don't record it, don't save it, and don't share it with anybody that you know might be looking to take this class or something. Hey, I'll give you this. You don't have to pay the $80. Don't do it. You'll get in a lot of trouble, and New York State can sue you, not me. Okay, great. All right, ready? Any questions before we get started? Last chance. You can ask me questions all along the way. That is all 26 topics right there. I'm going to go through them. Some of the stuff, it looks like I'm jumping around. I'm not jumping around. I'm giving you the material that you need to pass the test. Okay, I'm not giving you anything else except for material that you need. If it's not there, you know what that means? If it's not there,
Don't worry about it.
you don't need
Don't
it.
worry
Right.
about it.
I'm only giving you what you need. Now, Heaven, if you would, at the end, when I send you the link, I'd like you to respond to me because I don't know that I have your personal information on there. So I will try and help you out because you weren't in this class, and I'm going to try and help you out a little bit more in other ways. So just reach out to me afterwards. Okay.
Thank you.
Go. No problem. Independent contractor, employee, and licensed law. We started out from day one. I'm going to over this. Violation of licensed law is a misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail. And how much is the fine? $1,000. You wondered why I repeated that 95 times in the whole first day and second day, is because you need to know it. Our real estate law is Article 12A of New York real property law. We're found in the law books, and enforcement involves being a misdemeanor, etc. Okay. We have three categories of licensing. We have a broker, salesperson, and associate broker. Not broker associate, not broker affiliate, not assistant broker. It's associate broker is the name of a broker that chooses to work under the supervision of a real estate broker. Everybody understand that? A broker, I have a broker license. I don't want to start my own agency. I'm going to go work for someone else. I am an associate broker working under the supervision of a broker. According to New York real estate law, an agent is a licensed individual. Agency is a legal relationship. Guys, remember that? Agency, legal relationship, agent, licensed individual. Okay. So this licensing, we said we need certain things to have a real estate license. We need certain credentials. However, public officers performing official duties that is county clerk selling a property at foreclosure, etc., does not need a license to sell real estate. An executor of a will, a guardian for minors, referees, that's the auctioneer, and administrator, somebody that is representing an estate of someone who died without a will, do not need a license to sell real property. An attorney does not need a license to sell real property. A resident manager employed by one owner, property manager. You hired someone to manage property for you. They're managing the property. They're sitting there in that office managing. They don't need a license. However, collecting rent from anyone requires a license. Also, a salaried employee of a broker acting as a property manager does not need a license. Okay. You have questions, you ask me. How old do you have to be to get a real estate license? You have to be 18 years of age at least, and you need to be 20 years of age to be a broker, which means how many years of experience do you need to be a broker?
2.
2.
2 años. Great. That's my Spanish. All right. In order to collect a commission, in order for you to collect a commission, you must have and hold a valid New York State real estate license from the beginning of a transaction to completion. Got that? By the way, if it's in big bold letters or red, extremely important or muy importante. All right, so maintain a license from the beginning of transaction to completion. You can only get paid from your supervising broker. You can only get paid from your supervising broker, cannot receive money from anyone else in the transaction. When someone gives out commission sharing, uninformed commission sharing is called a kickback, right? That means, hey, mover, thanks for helping me getting that. A mover says, hey, thanks so much for getting me that $10,000 moving gig. Here's some money. Thanks so much for getting me the job. The mortgage guy says, hey, you did a great job. I just made a lot of money on that mortgage. Here's some money back. That's a kickback. Kickbacks are illegal. All right. We have a new visitor. Maintaining the license. All brokers' licenses must be displayed. Every broker in my office is on the wall. All their licenses are on the wall. Salespeople's licenses must be kept safely by the broker. All right, they can sit in a drawer, in a file. They do not have to be displayed. The brokerage firm must maintain records for how long? 3 years.
Year.
Okay, and the independent contractor agreement is a written employment agreement between the broker and the salesperson. It must be renewed annually, but not more than 15 months. Annually, not more than 15 months. These are key words that should probably be in red letters, but they're all bold. Everybody got the message there? Brokers are responsible for the actions of their licensees. That responsibility is called vicarious liability. Everything that you do, it's as if your broker gave you specific instructions to do whatever it was you did. Doesn't matter if he's aware of it or not aware of it. He is responsible because you are little mini-me's, if you remember. Okay, one more time. Violation of license law is a misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail and a fine of $1,000. And you're also subject to civil penalties. Civil penalties means a money penalty. They can sue you personally, and that civil penalties are punishable by 4 times the commission. You might get a question that says, Bob Jones or Bill Schwartz was found to be in violation of license law. His commission was supposed to be $4,000. How much was the civil penalties? 4,000 times 4, civil penalties of $16,000. Everybody got that? Very easy.
Yep.
Whatever it is. And it might not be 4,000. It could be $3,822 times 4. That's the answer. Great. All right. Salesperson employment status. All licensed salespeople and associate brokers are required to work for a sponsoring broker, right? You cannot work as an independent person. You are working for your broker. You work under him. Who else is coming in? Licensees are either hired as an employee or an independent contractor, right? An employee gets a salary. Independent contractor gets a straight check. No taxes, no insurance, no nothing comes out of it. You are completely on your own. All your expenses are yours. About the only thing that can be provided for you from your broker is a desk with a telephone. That's it. And some places, even that's not free. You are expected to pay all your own expenses as an independent contractor. You're going to, as a salaried employee, you're going to get a paycheck. You fill out a W-2. And at the, you're filling out a W-2, and at the end of the year, you get a, what do you get at the end of the year for an employee? I don't even know. You get a W-2 at the end of the year? Filling out a
W-4, and then you get a W-2 at the
W-4,
end.
and you get a W-2 at the end of the year. If you're an independent contractor, you're filling out a W-9, and you get a 1099 at the end of the year. Either way, you're an independent contractor or an employee, your broker is responsible for the reporting for you. It's not your job to notify the IRS which one you are. According to the Internal Revenue Service, pay attention to how I'm saying this. According to the Internal Revenue Service Safe Harbor Guidelines, an independent contractor has their income solely based on sales output and not tied to an hourly wage. Key words there is IRS Safe Harbor Guidelines. According to the IRS Safe Harbor Guidelines, an independent contractor has their income solely based on sales output. That means you don't make a sale, you don't get paid. They're not paying you hourly, they're not paying you, and they can't dictate to you what you do. Oh, here's the part I kind of jumped on before. All licensed salespersons are required to work for that broker. The employing broker, regardless of whether you're an independent contractor or an employee, it's the employing broker's responsibility to report your income to the Internal Revenue Service. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Yeah.
Thank you. Agency. We have different types of agency. We have a universal agent. That is also known as power of attorney. General agent. A property manager is a general agent, and a single transaction is called a special agent. Universal agent, power of attorney. That is unlimited decision-making, unlimited actions on behalf of your client, unlimited. They give you power of attorney. You are representing them in all areas. A general agent is not unlimited, but it's more than one task. Property managers bring in tenants, they evict tenants, they clean the property, they maintain the property, they hire the super, they represent the super, they oversee all the day-to-day activities. They've got multiple tasks for the owner. Not one, but not unlimited. A general agent, which is a property manager, can't sell the building. They need, that is a different authorization, different transaction altogether. Okay. A special agent has one job: represent the seller, represent the buyer, represent the landlord, represent the tenant, period. That's it. Okay. And then we have agency coupled with interest. That is a real estate agent or broker purchasing, selling, renting on behalf of themselves or someone that is not an arm's length transaction. Right, remember that? Arm's length transaction? People that you are close to, those are hugs. Arm's length is a handshake. Your mom, your sister, personal close family members, when you're representing them, you must disclose that broker discloses interest, that you have interest in the property. You're not just the agent, you're also representing the principal, and that principal is you, right? You're buying for yourself, you're selling for yourself, you're renting for yourself. We must inform the public I'm a licensed real estate agent, I'm a licensed real estate broker, and I'm purchasing, I'm renting, I'm selling on behalf of myself, my mom, my sister. That puts me in a position where I need to notify the other party because New York State says I am a professional negotiator, and that puts me at an advantage over the public. Okay. One thing about agency coupled with interest, the term is, and a test question will be, agency coupled with interest, blank, A, B, C, and D, cannot be revoked. Got that?
What do you mean it cannot be revoked? Like they can't take it away, or what do you mean?
I can't fire me. I'm always the agent and I'm always the buyer in the transaction. Right? If you hire an agent to represent you to buy a house and you don't like what he's doing, what do you tell him?
You're fired.
You're fired.
And
If you're buying for you, can you fire you?
no.
No. So you can't, the relationship of agent and client is you and you, so you cannot revoke that relationship. You're always the agent and you're always the buyer. You can't fire you from the transaction.
Agency coupled with interest, it could be a family member.
Could be a family member as well.
What if
Cannot
they
be
fire
revoked.
you?
Your mom could fire you.
Yeah,
Right. This is predominantly when you're working on behalf of yourself.
of yourself. Okay.
If you're
Can-
working for a family member, you still have to interest.
Right. It would be coupled with interest.
Yeah.
So it's
So, you know, and in heaven forbid, you list your mom's house and you both have the same last name and you didn't disclose interest on the document,
mm,
then you can be spending a year in jail and $1,000 fine,
okay.
Wow.
plus any other penalties that they can throw in there, besides the 4 times your commission that you should have earned. Okay. Agency is either express, which means in writing, or implied, which means it's created by our actions between the 2 parties. Everybody understand that part? Agency is created either express or implied. Express means in writing. Implied means the actions. Hey, how much do you think my house is worth? The next thing that comes out of your mouth had better be, before I answer that question, are you working with another realtor? Because I need to inform you, according to New York State, if I answer that question, I would be representing you as your agent. Do you understand that? I guess. Great. Sign here, please. That's how it works. All right. So the answer is usually, gee, I don't know. I haven't seen your house yet. Let's get together. Anytime someone asks you for information, I know you didn't spend 10 years in medical school, and I know you didn't spend 6 years in law school. However, if someone asks you a question, just think about what a lawyer would answer. If somebody asked a lawyer a legal question in the middle of a party, he would say, here's my card, call me tomorrow. Right now, I'm not working. Thank you very much. Somebody asks the doctor, I've got a pain in my shoulder. How do I handle it? Here's my card. Call me tomorrow, make an appointment, come on in. How much is my house worth? And agents just spill their guts. What's the worst part is you're giving out information and you've created an agency relationship. It's implied that person, if they act on your information, then you could get sued for giving them wrong information. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay. That representation, buyer agency, seller agency, all single agent, a dual agency representation. They represent both the client, the buyer, and the seller, the landlord and the tenant. In that dual agency transaction, the client gives up, not loses, they give up undivided loyalty, right? 2 parties. Imagine being the agent in between the 2, and this guy's telling you secrets and that guy's telling you secrets, and you have to keep your mouth shut between the 2. You'd love to tell this guy their dirt. You'd love to tell them his dirt so we can just put the deal together. It is confidentiality is absolutely critical in that situation. The broker's agent, the exact definition that you will need next week. A broker's agent If the question is an agent of the listing broker, but not necessarily the subagent of the seller is A, B, C, or D, your answer would be, Sam?
An agent of the listing broker, but not
And-
necessarily
But
the
not the
subagent.
subagent of the seller would be what
Seller.
kind of agent?
Broker's
A
agent.
general,
Broker's agent. Correct.
Broker's agent.
Broker's agent. All right. That dual agency is for in-house sales. An in-house sale is salespeople within the same brokerage act as both the seller's agent and the buyer's agent at the same time. It's referred to as an in-house sale, also known as dual agency. Dual agency, again, reminder, client loses undivided loyalty. The acronym for our fiduciary responsibilities is CC LOAD. CC LOAD stands for care, confidentiality, loyalty, obedience, accountability, and disclosure. Just in case, if you use the different book, I'm not sure exactly what CE Shop uses, but some of the schools use the other acronym called OLD CAR, and OLD CAR stands for obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accountability, and reasonable care instead of care. So for the school test, you guys have to know CC LOAD, what those 6 different items are. And if you're in the other class, or if you get to the state exam, they might ask you referring to OLD CAR instead of CC LOAD. So you need to know both. Right. Breach of fiduciary duties is the loss of your commission, loss of license, adverse judgment, which means they can fine you 4 times the commission. And again, the 4 times the commission. And then also, if it was really bad what you did, the judge, if you colluded with the sellers, for example, to mislead the buyer, or colluded with the seller, the buyer to mislead the seller, a judge can rescind the transaction and say, seller, give the buyer their money back, or vice versa. Okay. Latent defects. We're still in chapter 3. Latent defects are
3 or 2?
undisclosed. Right now, we probably should be in 3.
Oh.
Latent defects, maybe 2, I don't know. Latent defects are undisclosed defects. If a latent defect, if the buyer knew about these defects, it would change their opinion possibly on whether they would want to purchase the property or not. Okay, so whether they are even a financial property condition disclosure, regardless of whether they fill it out or not, the seller is still liable for all the undisclosed defects. Those are hidden defects, can't be discovered by ordinary examination or inspection. Any questions, stop me. I'm just going to keep rolling. If not, we have antitrust violations in New York. Remember Sherman Antitrust? That is our business dealing with other businesses. We have 4 different areas in the real estate world. We have price fixing, group boycotts, market allocations, tie-in arrangements. We said price fixing was, let's all agree that we're going to charge 6.5% commission. Every broker, let's just do that. Charge 6.5. Everybody will pay us. We'll all make money, and there'll be nobody undercutting each other. That's price fixing. That's illegal. Group boycotts. Let's not show any of, I don't know, Coldwell Banker. We're not going to show any Coldwell Banker products because Coldwell Banker charges less money in commission. I don't like their agents. So nobody show their properties. That's a group boycott is illegal. These are all illegal on the federal level, by the way. Market allocations. You stay on the north side of town. I stay on the south side of town. You don't come in my territory. I don't go to your territory. That's illegal as well. And any tie-in arrangements. The only way you're getting this house is you have to use my father to be your lawyer, or you got to use my brother's going to be your title insurance, or you have to use my insurance company or my mortgage company, whatever it is. Anything that's tied into the sale is illegal as well. Agency disclosure forms. You guys are good, right? You would ask a question if you had one, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, agency disclosures. That agency disclosure is required for residential properties, that is a 4 or fewer units or up to 4 units, including condos and cooperatives. Any real estate transaction requires an agency disclosure form, residential, 1 to 4 family, condos and co-ops. When do we produce or create this agency relationship? At first substantive contact, which is before entering the property or before anything of substance is discussed. That's what first substantive contact means. Okay. We have a property condition disclosure law, and there are certain requirements. There's a 48-page questionnaire that the seller will complete and give it to the buyer once we have an accepted offer on the condition of the property. That's number one. It is given to if they refuse to fill out the form, the seller will give the buyer a $500 credit at closing. Not $5,000, not $50, it's $500 credit to the buyer at closing. That means credit to the buyer, debit to the seller. Guys, remember that debit and credit part? Yes, Jason.
Okay, you said that the agent, you don't have to tell the seller this either. The seller not required to provide this disclosure. That's
He
correct?
is required to provide it. If he doesn't provide it, he's paying a penalty. But rather than pay New York State the penalty, the money goes to the buyer.
But if you are the agent for the seller, you don't, he doesn't have to do it, right?
If I'm an agent of the seller, I'm going to tell the seller to speak to your attorney and he will advise you on which one to do.
Yeah, I remember.
You
that.
don't want to tell him why he should and why he shouldn't, because only a lawyer can do that, and the lawyer is going to sue you
Yes, yeah. I
if you
remember.
gave them advice.
Did you
Okay,
do it?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
expensive.
okay.
This also goes for if he's lying about the property.
Yeah, well, if they give the credit, either way, if there's an undisclosed like major defect that they tried to conceal, the seller is still liable for that. But it's not necessarily like if your roof leaked and you flat out said on that document that the roof doesn't leak, you're open to a lawsuit that says you lied on a document. If you didn't produce the document and the roof leaked, you can still get challenged if there's major damage, but most of the time, you know, it's squashed with homeowners insurance. And I didn't lie to you. I didn't give you I didn't fill out anything. I didn't tell you it did, and I didn't tell you it didn't. Right?
Joe.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I heard you said once that if, for example, you gave the buyer or the seller the disclosure form and they didn't sign, you have a form that you can sign for yourself. But
Yes, there's a disclosure for the disclosure.
okay.
Either way, my job is to give the seller this blank disclosure form. And I'm going to inform them, seller, you're either going to give this form back filled in to the buyer, or you're going to give him $500 at closing. Do you understand that? Which one should I do, agent? It's not my decision which one to do. Ask your lawyer which one to do. My job is to explain to you, you're either going to fill the form out or give the buyer credit of $500 at closing. Do you understand that? Okay, I get it. Great. Sign here, please, that you understand that I explained to you, you're either going to give him 500 or the form filled out, right? There's a disclosure for that. So when I leave that listing appointment, I'm leaving the blank form there and I'm taking the signed disclosure form that he acknowledged that I explained it to him. I'm leaving with that. The blank
So
form
now-
stays at the house.
So now it's really the seller's responsibility to get into that house and make sure that there's no defects to the property.
That's the buyer's responsibility to do the inspection.
Okay,
So-
and then,
Right.
but it's the seller's responsibility to fill out the form.
Or not. If he doesn't fill out the form, he only has to give the buyer $500.
And non-refundable, that's right.
Yeah, there's no refund there. At the closing, the $500 is gonna come from the seller to the buyer. And what's the 500? Why are you giving me $500? Because I did not fill out the property condition disclosure form.
Well,
If the
actually,
seller
it's not
gives,
bad.
I'm sorry, go on.
No,
Sarah,
I-
are you good, Sarah, on that one?
Yeah, no, I got it. And
Okay.
what would be the reason again for the reason why the seller wouldn't fill out the form? Because they want
No
to
one's gonna
desperate-
advise them to fill out the form. The reality is.
Okay, so, but
You
there would never
probably
be a-
missed that because that was the first day. Did you miss the first day of class?
No.
No, you were there.
Mhm.
That was Isabel that missed the first day of class. Yeah, the first day
Yeah.
of class, we talked about that if you filled out the form and you said my roof never leaked, and the day after closing, it rained really hard and your roof leaked, then you lied on a document. So your attorney will most likely tell you, don't fill it out and just give them the $500.
Mm.
Anything could happen. Right?
Exactly.
And then they would say that you perjured yourself, that you lied on the document. It could happen anytime. You could have signed and closed 3 days before Hurricane Ian came through and your basement flooded and it never flooded before. And now you said this basement is dry as a bone, never flooded. And that day it flooded. You lied on that document.
Wow.
So your lawyer is going to say, give him the $500 and that's it. He got his money and he'll be done with it. Okay, Kimberly.
When it says either way, the seller has liability. If the seller gave the buyer 500, wouldn't he be not held accountable?
Not if there's something that's undisclosed, like if you found
Oh.
out you live in the house and you decide to plant tomatoes and you're digging a hole and there's a buried oil tank and it was not disclosed that there's a buried oil tank. That
Yeah.
is something that would cost you an arm and a leg to extract, then he's supposed to have told you there's a buried oil tank.
Yeah, because that's kind of major.
Yeah, it's major, right?
Oh,
No
okay.
one's gonna bother you for, a little anything, faucet drips or anything like that,
mhm.
windows a little drafty.
Yeah.
Okay. Lead-based paint, what's the year for lead-based paint? 1978.
1978.
Sometimes they might ask you on a test. I don't think this test has on it, but when it comes to inspections for lead-based paint to do the sampling, there's a 10-day opportunity that we have. I don't think it's on your test. I'll look at it. I have it right here.
You have the.
Ooh,
Oh.
test right here. I have it.
Joe, we'll all give you $100 if you just tell us everything.
Speak for
Okay.
yourself, Dan.
But
Speak for
anyway,
yourself, Dan.
moving right along.
I'll pay it.
No, Joe.
He makes more than that.
Okay.
Not enough.
Joe,
Uh,
did you say
I
you have 10
don't,
days,
uh,
the buyer
I'm
has
not
10
cheap.
days to inspect?
So
10
anyway,
days, yes, Laura.
10
don't
days to
forget, we're
inspect.
being recorded tonight. All right, so anyway, moving right along, we have different types of, so we're done with agency. Now we are working with agency forms, listing agreements. Agency, we said, was this legal relationship. And that legal relationship has fiduciary obligations, CC load, right? So now that's nothing to do with money. That has to do with relationships. It has to do with working in the best interest of your client. Now, this is the part about getting paid, right? We have exclusive right to sell listing agreement. No matter what, the broker gets paid, an exclusive right to sell. Remember that? No
Yeah.
matter what, the broker gets paid. Exclusive agency, the seller can sell the property on their own and not have to pay a commission. If the broker brings a buyer or the broker puts it into the multiple listing service and a cooperating broker brings them a buyer, the seller will pay his broker and his broker will split his commission with the cooperating brokerage firm. But if the seller sells it himself, like he does an open house on a Saturday, or he's cutting his
Joe,
grass.
I think we lost you.
You lost me where? You lost me?
No, you're
I
there.
can hear you.
I can still hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Yes.
good.
Okay.
So I'm good? You heard me,
Yes.
everybody?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, so exclusive agency, like a for sale by owner, for sale by owner can list their property with you and they sell it on their own. They can
I have a
not pay a
question.
commission.
Okay.
Yes, Maria.
What is the agent's responsibility when you sign a exclusive agency? Exclusive agency.
What do you mean, what's the responsibility? You
Well-
still have to sell the property just like any other any other listing.
Oh, because when you say we're doing cutting the lawn and doing the open house.
No, you're not cutting the lawn. All right,
Okay.
let me start from scratch.
Okay.
Let me do the same scenario. You just took a listing, right, Maria? You
Mhm.
just went to Bob's house, you took a listing, you put your sign on the front lawn. You drive away and now Bob's getting his house all spiffy. He's cutting his lawn and the neighbor comes by and says, "Hey, Bob, I see your house is for sale." And he says, "Sure. Can I see it? Come on in." And Bob shows the guy your property. He loved the listing. He loves it. He goes, "I'll take it." Exclusive right to sell. He calls you up and says, "Hi, Maria. I got a buyer for the property."
Okay.
Great. Call your lawyer. I'll put the paperwork. Are you charging me?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I
Exclusive right
understand
to
the
sell, no matter what, the
No
broker
what?
gets paid.
I understand that one because that's the only one that I know. But the exclusive agency, which you explained, that the seller can sell it herself or himself.
Correct,
At that point that we don't get anything,
correct.
right? But what do we still have obligations to open house and put on the
You still
MLS?
have to do everything you're supposed to do
Okay, that's what my
under
question.
normal circumstances. However, if the seller happens to meet a buyer
Okay,
without you, they don't owe you any money.
so that's like shooting a dice, right? Like you give it a 50% chance.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
that's
mostly used with the for sale by owners. A for
Okay.
sale by owner says, "Why should I list it with you, Maria? I'm going to sell it myself anyway." Okay, I tell you what, list it with me. I'm going to
Awesome.
market it on the MLS. If I bring a buyer, you pay me. If you bring your own buyer, you don't owe me a penny.
all right. You just have to get a buyer before she sells it, right?
You just got to get it sold
Right.
before they sell
So,
it.
in
Right?
other
Okay,
words,
thank you.
these can be called clauses, not just agreements, like clauses on the contract, like on the,
It's a
Right.
completely different, well, actually, it's the definition on there is at the end of the contract. They made you put definitions in because people were complaining that they didn't understand that, wait a minute, my brother bought the house, I still got to pay you a commission. I didn't know that. If I knew that, I wouldn't have listed the property. So now when you sign the contract, at the end of the contract, there's another section that is the definitions of an exclusive right to sell and exclusive agency. And they have to sign that they understand the difference between the two. Got it?
it
Okay,
tells the agency and the seller what to do at the end, like, more or
it'll,
less, right?
it'll
Like-
say an exclusive right to sell, you will be responsible regardless of who sells the house.
Gotcha.
In an exclusive agency, you will not be responsible to pay a commission if you provide your own buyer.
Okay, that's
Okay.
kind of, yeah, kind of good
An
options.
open listing, you give it to multiple agents, whoever brings me the buyer first, that's who gets paid. Okay, net listings in New York are illegal. Keep going. We good? It's not even an hour
Yep.
yet? Wow.
We're good.
Flying. All right, estates and interests. If you remember, we said that estates for real property is a freehold estate. What is it we are holding? We're holding the bundle of rights, free and clear to have and to hold indefinitely, for a lifetime, or forever. And there are
Right.
4 recognized estates in New York. Please remember them. Fee simple.
Could you go over that again? I'm sorry, could you just say that again?
Sure. Freehold estate is real property ownership. It is indefinite for a lifetime or forever. It is free to hold, free and clear to have and to hold, right? What does that mean? That means possession. And what do you actually possess?
The bundle of rights.
The bundle of rights. Very good. Okay. There are 4 freehold estates recognized in New York. We have fee simple, that's all the bundle of rights belong to the owner. Under normal circumstances, if no exemptions are on the deed, you are receiving fee simple, which is all the bundle of rights. You can get a qualified fee or fee on condition. That means you'd have no right to control. You can't use the property for whatever you wanted to. The seller or the grantor, whoever gave you or sold you the property, said, I'm giving you this property, Maria, but it has to be used for raising horses. That's it. You do anything else with the property, you're losing it, right? So fee simple is complete, qualified fee, fee on condition. You need to know the 4 of those, by the way. You need to know fee simple, qualified fee, fee on condition, and life estates. You absolutely need to know those 4 items. What are the 4
you could say that-
recognized estates in New York?
You could say fee on condition is like, I'm letting you the property, but in condition.
Don't waste your time with knowing what it is.
Oh,
You're not gonna need it. You need to know that fee simple is all the bundle of rights.
gotcha.
And the 4 of them, if somebody says, what are the 4 recognized estates in New York? Fee simple, qualified fee, fee on condition, and life estates. All right. Fee simple is a complete bundle of rights. Life estates, you don't have the right to devise it, right? So somebody has a life estate, they can't sell the property. And we also said that the life estate, based on someone else's life, not the owner of the property, if it's based on you can stay here as long as Shirley over there is alive, that is a life estate. If you remember what that was, pour autre vie.
Ownership.
Pour, P-A-U, autre vie. It's a French
For
term.
one's life.
Don't
Oh,
ask me. For someone else's life. Correct. Okay. Fee simple, most complete type of real estate ownership. It runs forever. So upon the death of the owner, it passes to their heirs. Whoever is next of kin, the owner dies, goes to the spouse or children, and goes to their children and their children and their children. It is forever. Okay. In New York, the grant, either the sale or gift, the person selling or giving is called the grantor. The grant of real property, real estate, automatically, unless someone challenges it, is at fee simple ownership. Under normal circumstances, you want to buy my house? Great. Here, Priscilla, you got my house. Here's the deed. It's a fee simple deed. Unless I sold you my house and said you can have the house. However, it's as long as when my daughter turns 30, you lose the house. It's yours until then. Live in it, do whatever you want with it, earn income from it. But when she turns 30, it reverts back. Okay. That is not fee simple. Okay. That is a life estate. Life estate, pour autre vie. We have what's called the remainder man. You either are in reversion or remainder. If it comes back to the original owner after the person dies, then it is reversion. If it goes to someone else after somebody dies, that's in remainder. Don't knock yourselves out on that one. Forms of ownership. We're not taking a break, right? We're just going to steamroll.
Yes.
Great.
Whatever you.
Yeah. Okay. So forms of ownership, we said in severalty. How many owners in severalty?
One.
One owner. Right. It means sever, like separate. In severalty, one owner. Or co-ownership. Sometimes they use the term concurrent ownership. Okay. Or in a trust. Concurrent or co-ownership are 3 different ways of concurrent ownership. One of them is tenants in common, joint tenants with right of survivorship, and tenants by the entirety. Okay, tenants in common has undivided interest Undivided interest means that you can't tell which part is mine and which part is yours, right? I own 90%, you own 10%. You can't tell which portion of the building is my 90%. The only difference is when we sell the building, I get 90% of the revenue, you get 10% of the revenue. 90% of the debt, I get, and you have 10% of the debt. When one owner passes away, their next of kin, their heir, receives their portion. Okay, so we're all partners in a property. Something happens to me, you're all partners with Mrs. Baratta now. That's you, my next of kin becomes your new partner. Okay. Unmarried people buying a property automatically creates tenants in common unless otherwise specified. Usually at a closing, the attorney will ask unmarried people, what do you want to happen to this property should you die unexpectedly or whatever? Should you pass away, what do you want to have? Well, I'm not dying for another 100 years. Okay, great. That's nice to know. However, should you happen to pass away, one of you, what do you want to happen to the house? Well, I want him to get it. Okay, so we're not tenants in common that way. If you want your children to get it, or so your family to get it, your half of the property, then you're tenants in common.
And they document that on the deed?
And that's on the deed. The deed is as tenants in common. It would be fee simple ownership as tenants in common,
Mhm.
right? That's how the deed would read. So the other version is joint tenants, and it's called joint tenants, but you have to really complete it in order to really remember which one is which. It's joint tenants with right of survivorship is the actual name of that type of tenancy. And joint tenants with right of survivorship, the question would be the unity of time, title, interest, and possession is what kind of ownership? Your answer would be joint tenants. The unity of time, that means they all acquire the property at the same time. So I left the property to 3 people, all at the same time. They're all named on the same deed. They all get the same amount of ownership, the unity of interest, same amount of ownership. I can't have 3 owners and one person get half and the other 2 get 25% each. In joint tenancy, there's 3 people, they get 33 1/3 each. 4 people, 25% each. 2 people, 50% each. There's no 2 ways about it. That's the only way it could be. Equal ownership and undivided interest. Again, we said you can't distinguish which portion is mine and which portion is yours. All right? Everybody understand that? The unity of time, title, interest, and possession is what kind of tenancy?
Joint tenancy.
Joint tenancy. Right. Good job. Then we have the third kind for a special type of tenancy called tenants by the entirety for married couples only.
Yep.
Right? Husband and wife, husband in New York, husband, wife. As long as you are legally married, you are own property tenants by the entirety. That means you own 100% of the house, but your spouse also owns 100% of the house. It is special for married couples only. Okay. We're good?
Oh,
Yes.
Joe, one question. What if one of the what if the property is bought before they got married from one spouse?
If it's bought before you got married, then you own it in severalty by yourself, but your spouse is your next of kin. So if you die without a will, your spouse is getting your half, your house.
I see. So if you have a will, then you can preserve that, right?
You could, if you bought it before you got married. If you're married for 10 years, New York says it's hers.
Even without a will?
Without a will, especially.
Huh, okay.
You're married 10 years is the same as forever in New York.
Okay, thank you.
Personal property. We just talked about real property. Everything else, wow, we got like a revolving door here. Everything else is real, is,
Personal property.
thank you. Real property, everything that's not real property is personal property. Thank you, Julia. So everything that's real property, you take that boiler, remember that deal? Take the boiler, it's personal property. I install it, it becomes a fixture. That fixture is permanently attached. That boiler becomes real property. That faucet is personal property. Installed, it becomes real property. Okay. We also talked about that personal property that belongs to real property. Personal property belongs to real property, like a tree has apples on it. As soon as we remove the apple from the tree, it is an emblement. It still belongs to the property until it leaves the property, then it's just personal property. Chattel is anything that's not from the property, like personal property on the property is chattel. Water rights. Remember water rights?
Yeah.
We have riparian rights and we have littoral rights. Riparian rights. That is non-navigable water. When you hear the word stream or pond, small lake, anything that has no commercial vessels, you own to the midpoint. Those are riparian rights. Littoral rights. Borders, lakes, oceans, large rivers, navigable water. Those are littoral rights. And we said on the riparian rights, you own to the midpoint. In littoral rights, you own to the high water mark. Wherever high tide hits your property, that's where the cutoff is. That's where your property ends, at the high water mark. Okay. Liens, easements, and deeds. We're on chapter 5 by now.
Yeah.
Okay. Liens. A financial claim or charge against real estate that provides security for a debt or obligation of the property owner. A financial claim or charge against real estate that provides security for a debt or obligation of the property owner is also known as a lien. See that red letters? Is it bold red letters? Great. Memorize that, please. Okay, liens are either voluntary, involuntary, general, or specific. Mortgage liens. A mortgage is a specific voluntary lien. It is specific to your property and you have to give permission for it. A judgment lien. It's general. They can attach a lien to any of your property and you didn't give permission for that. That is involuntary. A mechanic's lien. You didn't pay the plumber. You didn't pay the carpenter. You didn't pay for the lumber that was delivered. It is specific to your property, involuntary. You did not give permission to put the lien on that. And a mechanic's lien can only be placed on the primary residence. A specific lien is only on that particular property, not everything. A general is on anything, your bank accounts, your salary, anything they want to garnish or sell on a general. Any questions? An encumbrance is a right or interest in a property held by a party who's not the owner of the property. Is an encumbrance. An encumbrance is a right or interest in a property held by someone who's not the owner. Someone who's not the owner has rights to my property. Usually it's somebody that had it before me or the original developer. Those are encumbrances. So we say that this property has encumbrances or it's encumbered. Okay. Remember that? It's Latin for suit pending, lis pendens. It means that there is some sort of a lawsuit that is coming that we haven't gotten a decision yet. If somebody goes to court with somebody or somebody files a claim against you, it hasn't necessarily been granted by that general lien, so they would put a lis pendens on your property. It prevents the sale of the property until we can satisfy whatever the lawsuit is, whether it's a judgment, a lien, whatever. There are these specific liens, like real estate taxes are specific liens. They are specific and involuntary. Also, sometimes the test will call, instead of calling them real estate taxes, they will call them ad valorem. Ad valorem means for the value of, and that is what your real estate property taxes are based on the value of your property. Okay,
Ad
they're
valorem.
specific and involuntary. And I didn't do that chapter with you, but real estate taxes are said to be in rem, I-N-R-E-M, in rem. That means the taxes are not on you, they're on your house. Your mortgage is not on you, but you did sign a promissory note for that mortgage lien, right? Taxes, you personally never owe the real estate taxes on your house. You don't owe them. Your house does. Your property technically owes the taxes, not you personally. So that's where in rem means. It's not you, it's the land that owes the taxes. Okay. Remember also that the tax liens, when we're asking questions about the order of liens, which one is subordinate, tax liens always supersede or come ahead of all other liens. Remember that. Some ABC brokerage discovered that the seller decided that they didn't want to pay them their commission. What would they do? Could they put a lien on the property? No, they cannot. They would file an affidavit of entitlement. An affidavit of entitlement is not a lien. If you think you're not going to get paid, you file an affidavit of entitlement. It would hold your commission in escrow until after the closing. Now that we closed, am I your agent anymore? After
No.
No, agency's finished after closing. I successfully did my job. Now I can sue you for my commission.
Oh,
The broker's affidavit of entitlement holds my money in escrow, does not release it to the seller until after closing, because we're not allowed to put a lien on the property. Okay. Next is deeds. A deed is the bill of sale for real estate. A deed conveys property from one person to another. What conveys property from one person to another?
A deed.
A deed, correct. Okay, in order for that deed to be valid, it has to be executed. What is executed? Signed by the owner, the grantor. That person has to be at least 18 years of age and of sound mind, and the receiver, the buyer, has to accept it. Okay, has to be delivered and accepted by the grantee, executed by the grantor. Remember I said at the closing, the seller will sit there, he will sign it. As soon as all the money comes across the table, they hand the deed to the buyer, and the buyer physically, either he or his attorney, receives that deed. Until the deed is received, that property did not transfer ownership. Okay, that's what has to happen in order for it to be a valid transfer. We also have different types of deeds. Full covenant and warranty deed. The most complete guarantee, the most safe, complete type of a deed is a full covenant and warranty deed. We have a bargain and sale deed and quitclaim deed. Bargain and sale deed is either with covenant against grantors acts or without covenants against grantors acts. Okay. And a quitclaim deed has no covenants whatsoever other than the person signing it has the legal right to transfer ownership from the estate or whoever it was to the new owner, right? Everybody remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, you go to a foreclosure sale, you buy the house at a foreclosure sale, the auctioneer, the referee, the county clerk is going to sign the deed. They know absolutely nothing about the property. They don't know if there's liens. They know nothing about it other than I'm signing it and I have the legal right to transfer this from the bank who just sold the property to you. Congratulations. And I'm signing it. That's a quitclaim deed. Warranty deed provides the greatest protection. We just said it has the covenant of season, which is ownership. It has a covenant against any encumbrances. It's a pretty safe deed, and it is also very uncommon to get a warranty deed. All right, because you're giving further assurance and warranty forever. But which one has the greatest protection of any deed? A warranty deed. The quitclaim deed is usually used in family transactions. Most commonly used. A quitclaim deed has no warranties whatsoever. Okay, red letters, big bold stuff. I mean, you get the idea of how I'm conducting this class right now, right? Like if I handed you a test for everything that we looked at so far, I would think everybody here should be getting 100. Get a 99. It looks bad if everybody gets 100. Doesn't look good. All right, somebody just get one wrong. If you just buzz through the whole thing in 15 seconds, just do one wrong for me, okay? All right, so conveyance, after you die, you either died with a will at the time of your death, or you didn't have a will. If you died with a will, you died testate. If you died without a will, you died intestate. Okay? No valid will, involuntary alienation. No will, my property is going to go to whoever New York State decides is going to get my assets. With a will, then it is called voluntary alienation because the property will go to whomever I wanted. That's both money and real property. Deed restrictions. We also call those restrictive covenants. Remember those? They're set by a developer or a seller, and they determine the size of the lot, the size of the home, the color, rules, any rules and regulations, any specific wishes. We said this can be on individual homes and especially in condominiums. You live in a development and every house is exactly the same color, the same door, the same garage doors, the same style windows, and you bought your unit and you wanted to go make yourself a nice pink door, right? You can't do that. It has to follow the rules of the deed. Sometimes there's so many rules, like when you buy a condominium, it comes in a book, and that book is an attachment to the purchase contract and the deed. It's an attachment to it that says on the deed, please, when it comes to deed restrictions or restrictive covenants, it will say, please refer to Article A. And then you go to Article A, which is a book. And that book is part of the deed. If anybody ever bought a condo or sold a condo, you know that they ask you for the CC&Rs, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions. It's a book. It goes with, at the closing, you're going to get a copy of that with your deed. That's all the restrictions and rules for the property.
Easements.
Easement appurtenant. What's another word for easement appurtenant?
Right away.
Right of way, right. Sometimes the test question says another word for right of way is an easement. Okay, just make sure you get it right. An easement in gross. What do we use those for? Utility companies. And we said that a utility company does not need your permission to enter the property when they are coming to service their utilities. If you got a gas line, electric line, telephone line, and it's on your property, there's an easement for the utility, and they do not need your permission to enter your property, to service your property, and to service their utility. Next, the covenant of season. Season, we said, was ownership, right? This kind of sounds like legal descriptions again. Remember legal descriptions? Starting from a point of beginning, and we're going in this direction, 43 degrees for this many feet, whatever. We do the entire full circle. We come back to the point of beginning that encapsulates or encloses the entire area. The seller has a handful of dirt. The buyer takes the dirt from him. That is seizing the property. That is ownership of the property. And since there's nothing physical, what exactly are you seizing? You are possessing the bundle of rights. Okay. We talked about legal descriptions in that that legal description on the deed has to, and for a deed to be valid, has to have certain things in it. And one of them is the legal descriptions. The least acceptable legal description is what?
The
Meets
property
and
address.
The property address is the least acceptable description. We have what's called meets and bounds system. That is the property being described in written form from the point of beginning, going 156 feet north, 44 degrees, 31 minutes west to this point. Then we are going east, 45 degrees, 28 minutes, 87 feet to this point. Then we're going south, 44 degrees, 31 minutes for 156 feet. Then we're going west, 87 feet for 45 degrees, 28 minutes back to the point of beginning. So in the description, in the test would be markers, monuments, pins, point of beginning are all part of which type of legal description?
Meets and bounds.
Meets and bounds. Great. I mean, the other one is a recorded plat of subdivision, also known as a plat map, and identified by section, block, and lot. So a section, block, and lot map is going to be a recorded plat of subdivision, plat map, subdivision map, etc. Benchmarks. What do we use benchmarks for?
For elevation.
Starting point.
Elevations. Thank you. It's right there. Transferring ownership. When we talked about transferring ownership before, with a will, it is voluntary alienation. Without a will, it's involuntary alienation. So let's forget about being dead. I want to sell it or give it to whomever I want. That's called voluntary alienation. Transferring the ownership at the will of the owner. I can sell it. I can give it as a gift. I can give it to the municipality. That's called a dedication. And the municipality can give it to me, called a grant. Okay. Then there's involuntary alienation, which is without the will of the owner. Owner does not want to get rid of his property. He wants to give it to whom he wants to, or he doesn't want to sell it or give it away at all. So it is either through a foreclosure, you can lose your property, that is involuntary alienation, or eminent domain. Eminent domain is the legal authority that a municipality has to acquire your property for public use. Eminent domain. They take your privately owned land and they take it away from you for public use. You want to build a school, a road, a municipal building, courthouse, whatever they need it for, they will take it from you. However, there's two ways that it's done, either through appropriation, which means they're going to pay you for it. They'll give you compensation for it. Or if you refuse, they will condemn the property and just take it from you. And if they condemn it, you don't get any money for it. If it's appropriation, they'll offer you money, you take your money and leave, have a nice life. If you don't want to sell it, say, I don't care what you're doing. I know it's a bridge. I know the old Tappan Zee Bridge is going to fall into the water any second. You're not building, you're not taking my land. I don't care that we need a bridge. They're going to just take it from you. Called condemnation. Okay.
What is alienation again?
Alienation is the property leaving you. Alienation is you separating yourself from the property, right? Whether you sell it or give it to somebody, right? You become an alien to your property.
And there's two. There's voluntary alienation and involuntary.
Right. So voluntary means I give it or sell it to someone that I want. Involuntary is it gets taken away from me.
Yeah, and that's where
Give it
eminent.
to somebody that I don't want, right?
Yes.
Involuntary is the
The force.
eminent domain. They're going to take it away from me. It's still involuntary, even though they're going to pay you for it. If you'll accept the money, you still didn't want to sell it.
Yeah,
They're still taking it from you,
okay.
right? And if you
Yeah.
don't sell it, they will just plain take it, and taking it is condemnation. Okay, for that deed to transfer, a valid transfer, we said it has to be signed by the grantor, delivered and accepted by the grantee. All right, if we're going to file it with the county clerk, then it has to be signed by all parties. A lease is a contract between an owner of real estate, the lessor, and the tenant, the lessee. What does it actually do? It transfers the right to possession. What do we possess?
Property.
The bundle of rights, right? It's
Right.
possession of the bundle of rights temporarily. It is a non-freehold estate, which means you don't get to own the rights indefinitely. You get the rights to use, but you don't get the deed with those rights. You don't get title and possession. You only have a temporary possession, right? So it's a non-freehold estate because it's not permanent. We said a freehold was indefinitely or forever or for a lifetime. A non-freehold estate is not indefinite. It's not forever. It has a limited period of time that we're transferring ownership. Okay. So it's the right to possession and use of the property for a specific period of time. The statute of fraud requires that a lease for a term of more than a year has to be in writing, not to be legal, but to be enforceable.
Let's go.
Okay. Every residential lease contains an implied warranty of habitability. Every single item on that screen you need to know. Independently of each other, every single one of those items you need to know. Leases. 4 different types of leases. We have an estate for years, a fixed term, a periodic estate, renews indefinitely. We said is either month to month or week to week, right? And if you created an estate for years, like you took a 1-year lease, that lease ended and you stay there, you are a holdover tenant. Tenancy at will is an indefinite period of time. There's no set time on that. It's not month to month. It's not a fixed term. It is indefinite. I might be here for a month. I might need the place for 9 months. Tenancy at will, an indefinite period of time. Tenancy at sufferance is possession after the agreement has terminated. I showed up on month number 13 on the first day. I'm thinking the apartment's empty. You're still there. That is
At that point,
tenancy at
it's a month, right?
sufferance. That is tenancy at sufferance at that point. The minute that tenant hands you the rent and you accepted the rent, you just created a periodic estate. Everybody get that? Because
Does
now I
tenancy
collected
at-
rent.
Oh, sorry. Does tenancy at sufferance and holdover tenant, they're basically the same thing.
No, the difference is a holdover tenant I want there.
Oh,
A
Oh.
tenancy at sufferance, I don't want you there.
yeah, that's tenancy at sufferance is when you're gonna go to court
Yeah, but
compared
if
to.
I collect rent from you, then you just became a periodic estate.
Yes. Okay.
So that's the problem. I collect the rent. Now I have to give you 30 days to move out. Next month, you're still there. I collect the rent again. We have another month lease renewed.
Periodic estate.
Yeah, we just created another periodic estate. It's like, Bob, you better get out of here. I don't want you here. You need to be out of here by the end of the month. And he's still there next month. And go, okay, if you're going to be here, you got to pay the rent, and he pays the rent. And he just created another tenancy for another month. Okay. For a lease to be enforceable, 1 or more years, it has to be in writing and signed by all parties. That is the New York State Statute of Frauds. That's the rules on that. A contract. It is a, keywords here, voluntary agreement between legally competent parties to perform or not perform a legal act supported by some sort of legal consideration. And we said in the contract world, consideration is something of value, right? Something of value has to be in exchange for whatever we're agreeing to. Contracts are either expressed or implied. Remember that? What's expressed and implied? Express is what?
In writing.
Friday.
In writing.
Writing.
Implied, the actions.
Uh.
Delivering that dinner, you order a steak, guy brings you a steak, that's an implied contract. You are expected to perform. Perform on that. If I order food and you brought me the food, what performance do I have to do?
Hey.
Payment, correct. Right. Contracts are either unilateral, one party has to perform, bilateral, both parties are required to perform, right? A standard buy-sell is a bilateral party. The buyer has to buy, the seller has to sell. Okay, great. Contracts are either valid, void, voidable, or unenforceable. A valid contract has all the essential elements of a contract. If, I think we read one of the classes, we did a sample question and we said that the person that signed it was not the owner of the property. What kind of contract was it? It is a void contract. The wrong name is on there. If the seller's name is not on that contract, it's a void contract. Voidable is a contract that seems valid, but it was signed by a minor and that minor can cancel at any time. So it's voidable, not void, voidable. Unenforceable is a contract that you could not sue to enforce. Assignment and novation. Assignment is the transfer of rights under a contract. So I have a contract. I'm going to be purchasing a house. Patrick, you can take the contract. I'm going to assign it to you. Your name goes on there. My name comes off. And now I have no responsibilities for the purchase of that property. You're now the new buyer of that property. Okay. And the process of changing the contract from your name to my name is called novation. Instead of tearing up the contract and starting from scratch, we change names on the contract. It's a special writer. Nothing gets erased on a contract. It's scratched out or there's some sort of notation referring to another page that says, see page 2, and it's going to say that Patrick Murphy is replacing Joseph Baratta as purchaser, something like that. Okay. Duncan Hill decision. What did that have to do with? The unauthorized practice of law. We are allowed to fill in the blanks only on pre-printed forms prepared by a local attorney, the local bar association, and approved by the local board of realtors. Okay, filling in the blanks only. The Duncan Hill versus New York State is about the unauthorized practice of law. Great. Some contract contingencies that we have to remember. We had an escape clause or a kick-out clause. A buyer has to sell his house first. That is a kick-out clause or an escape clause. The seller says, okay, you have to sell your house first. When are we going to close? We're going to close on November 5th. November 5th is coming around and you haven't brought a buyer yet. I can kick you out and go get a new buyer. So it works works equally well for both the buyer and the seller. If the buyer does not find a buyer for their home to sell, they can back out of the deal. And if they're not performing in a timely manner and the seller has another offer coming along, they can kick you out and take the other offer if you haven't gotten your home sold in a reasonable amount of time. Okay. A mortgage contingency. If I do not get a mortgage, I don't have to buy the property. Liquidated damages. If we don't close by a certain date, you're going to pay me X dollars on top of your deposit is liquidated damages. Federal Housing Authority and Veterans Administration. These are two different types of mortgages, if you remember, an FHA and VA loan. FHA loans are insured. VA loans are
Warranty.
guaranteed, right? So since they are 100% of the purchase price, you're being loaned 100% of the purchase price, the rider says that your property must appraise for full purchase price. Otherwise, there's no transaction. All right, I did not do title and closing costs with you, with either class. That was done by somebody else. So I'm gonna make sure that you understand a couple of basics from title and closing costs. All right, we have caveat emptor. What does that mean? Caveat emptor. New
Let the
York is a,
buyer be
yeah,
aware.
let the buyer beware. New York is a caveat emptor state. So we have what's known as constructive notice and actual notice. Constructive notice and actual notice. So what is constructive notice and what is actual notice? Ask me a question. Ask me something that I probably wouldn't know. Somebody asked me a question. Ask me a question of something that I probably wouldn't know.
How much of the world is covered in water?
Okay, how much of the world is covered in water? That information is available to me. The fact that that information is available to me is called constructive notice. Watch this. What was the question again?
Can't find out.
Hang on a second. How much of the world is covered in water? 71%. Do you know what that is? Actual notice. Available information is constructive notice. Finding out the information is called actual notice. So this caveat emptor state, besides this, I'm not looking for how much of the, great question, by the way, how much of the world is covered in water. I want to find out information about the real property that I'm going to purchase. I want to find out all about that property. If it's got any violations on it, if it has a certificate of occupancy, who the owners are, any additions to it, any liens, all that information is readily available to the public. It's public information, otherwise known as constructive notice. It is your duty, buyer, let the buyer be aware, it is your duty to go and find out that information before you purchase a property. Everybody get that? Not
Yeah.
everybody knows how to do that. Who do you hire to do that?
The agent.
No, agent isn't doing that for you. Who's
Title
hiring? Who are
search.
you hiring to find out?
Title-
The title company, right?
Title
We
company.
want to call a title company will not only do that homework for us, but they're going to guarantee and ensure that property, that no one comes back and all the liens are satisfied and there's no one coming back to look at you to take that property away from you or challenge your ownership. Okay, everybody get that?
Yes.
Next thing, chain of title and abstract of title. The chain of title is a history of all the owners back to the original owner of the property. It's called the chain of title. The abstract of
chain of-
title, what's that?
Sorry. No, I was just gonna no, never mind. I was gonna say
So-
chain of command, more spec, like, you know what I mean, like from earlier on. owner
Yeah,
to
it's from the
like-
original owner. So my house that I live in had one owner before me. And then before that, this was like a farm, my property. As a matter of fact, the house across the street was the original farmhouse and next door to it is the original dairy barn. My house is part of this huge farm that was here. So the history, the chain of title on my property is me, Mr. Silver, the guy who sold me the house, and the farm that originally subdivided and that first deed was cut to Mr. Silver as the first buyer. He got his deed and then sold it to me. So my chain of title is pretty small. But if you bought a house that's a couple of 100 years old, that chain of title might have been owned by 15 or 20 different people, right? That's the chain of ownership from the original creation of that deed up until today. Who the owners are is the chain of title. Everybody got me? Bought by Mr. Jones in 1931, sold by Mr. Jones in 1955 by Shirley Smith. Bought it, and Shirley Smith owned it from 55 to 75, and from 75 she sold it to John Goldberg, and 75 till today John Goldberg has owned the house.
So we
Right,
can
that's the
find
chain
out that
title.
through the title.
What's that?
The story of the house, you can find out through the title.
Through the chain of title, right?
Chain of
The
title.
abstract of title, however, is that first guy, Bob Schwartz, that owned the house. Did he have any liens on the property? When he bought it, he got a mortgage, so there's going to be a lien filed under his name. He paid off when he sold the house, paid the lien off, so there's a satisfaction of mortgage. The guy that bought it from him took out a mortgage, so there's a lien in his name. At the time when he owned the house, somebody sued him and there was a judgment against him, another lien on the property. He paid off, he sold the house, both of those liens were satisfied. Then the person who bought it took out a mortgage. They had a mortgage, they sold it, satisfied the lien. The next guy came in, and for some reason, over the time, not all this information is readily available anymore. We had things, not everything is digitized. Now, if a bank burned down, we don't have to worry because they're not looking at physical pieces of paper. Everything's digitized. Well, maybe in 1930, there's a gap. There's this space somewhere that they had a deed from Bob Jones from 1921 till 1935. And then from 1935, all of a sudden in 1950, Shirley Jones owns the house in 1950. But what happened between 1935 and 1950? Well, most of the title companies have an idea. They say, oh, maybe he sold it. There was a couple of banks in that area that burnt down. They had floods. They lost all their records. So there's no record of between 1935 and 1950. So the title company will file what's called a quit claim deed. It's a quit claim deed. They file a deed between 1935. It's a bogus deed. It's called a gap, right? It's a gap filler. It's called a suit to quiet title. It is a fake deed. It's not the real one that fills in the gap from 1935 till 1950. And the title company puts that in there. So now they're insuring your property. All of a sudden, Sam, you own the house. You're in that house. Title company gave you title insurance. Somebody knocks on the door because they were in grandpa's attic. And they open up this big war chest, and in there is the deed to your house. Grandpa bought it in 1935. He got sent to war, and when he came back, he was stationed somewhere else, and he never claimed that property. And somebody sold it to Shirley Schwartz, who sold it to you, Sam, a few years ago.
Wow.
So now this kid's coming along and saying, you're living in my house. I got the deed to it right here. Hello, title company. Someone is challenging my ownership of this property. Please settle this for me. Either pay that guy off or pay me off. Somebody has to settle this, right?
Well, how would you find out the title company? Like, well, how would you know what it is?
Well,
Would you
title
say on it?
companies usually know when there's a gap. Usually those gaps have been closed for a long time, and they usually filled in with a deed. There has to be something in that abstract. You can't have a gap between that year and that year. It's got to be settled. Not in
Oh, I
not
see.
those two particular years. So they file a bogus deed is what they're doing. It's called a suit to quiet title, which completes the abstract, which is the history of the instruments, the lien and the satisfaction of lien. Lien, satisfaction of lien. Those are the instruments, okay? Chain of title, the history of ownership. Abstract of title is a history of the instruments. Those are liens and payoffs, judgments, etc.
And now, as a homeowner, can I go and find a chain of
Yeah,
a chain of title? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
county clerk, I guess.
County clerk, you could probably do it online.
Just to see the history of it?
You could do it online, put your property in there, county clerk, depending on what town you live in. It's probably all digitized and you can see every deed that transferred since your house was built originally,
Wow.
right? It's gonna be there. They know what it is. Title company physically used to have to go there and go through all the books and go back and search for the history until that, from the time that house was originally built.
Wow.
It was a big job. Now they can do title in a day. Okay, so what is the lender, the bank? What is their interest in closing? We're still on title and closing costs. The buyer is trying to get good title, so they insist that you get title insurance. You don't have to if you're paying for cash. It's foolish because you don't know what you're buying, but you're not required if you're buying it for cash. But if you're getting a bank, the bank says, I need to know that no one's going to challenge our ownership of this property. So they want good title, hire a title company. They want a survey to make sure that there's no encumbrances on the property or encroachments. The bank is located in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. They don't know what's going on here, so they want representation by an attorney. At most closings, there are 3 attorneys there. Buyer's attorney, seller's attorney, and bank attorney. Somebody's representing the bank who's not here. They want to make sure this is a real transaction. Okay? They want to make sure that there are taxes and insurance reserves held in escrow. So when the bills come, the bank can pay the bills. They want to make sure that the homeowner's insurance is in place before the closing. And if there's flood insurance required, that it's put in place as well.
The reserves for taxes, that's only if the house is foreclosed, right? The
No,
lender,
you're always going to have reserve for taxes. Right now, if you were to close, I don't know what today's November the 3rd, right? Today's November 3rd. You're closing tomorrow, November 4th, right?
right,
The seller has already paid the school taxes for the year on September 1st.
oh, I see.
So
Okay.
you have to reimburse him for the rest of the year. He
I
paid
see.
September, October, and you're there November 3rd. So you owe him 3 days of November plus 2 months. You got to pay him back for the rest of the
Right.
year. He used 3 days and 2 months. You got to give him back the rest of the year, which is 9 months and 27 days.
Oh,
You
I
got to
see.
reimburse him, right? So the
Gotcha.
title company is going to clear all that up and do the adjustments, okay? At the closing, the title company is going to have you sign an affidavit of title. Another important slide. The title company asks the seller to sign an affidavit of title. What is that? It assures that the title company that you didn't do anything from the time the title company completed their search. What does that mean? The title company does a search to see if there's any liens and judgments or anything else on the property. When they're done, they notify the attorneys, we're done, we have clear title. Do they close that day?
No.
No, they might
No.
not close for another week or 2 or longer, right? Waiting for other issues. Is it possible, Sam, that you walk into Citibank and say, hey, you know what? I want to refinance my house. Pull 200,000 out of that house. You could do that in a matter of 3 days and the bank will give you a check in 3 more days. And now we go to closing. The title company was complete on their report. You just didn't put an encumbrance on that property. So an affidavit of title is you are swearing under oath, signed affidavit that you did nothing to encumber the property from the
Oh, I
time
see.
the title company completed the transaction of their search till the day of closing, right? Make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
You didn't go bankrupt during that time. You didn't file for divorce during that time. Anything that could cause the title company to have to pay on a claim. Okay, I didn't do with you, the closing statement. The closing statement, I think I went with one class, I talked about it. The closing statement is just like a bank account. When you put money into a bank account, we call that a deposit, but in the banking terms, it's called a credit. When you take money out of your account, We used to call that a withdrawal. We call it a debit, right? That card that you have is called a debit card. It means every time that you spend money on there, it's taking money out of your checking account, right? That's a debit account, a debit card. So when we're doing these adjustments, when it comes out of somebody's account, it's a debit. When it goes into somebody's account, it's called a credit. So that $500 credit at closing for the property condition disclosure form is $500 credit to the buyer. What else is it? It's a
Debit to the
debit
seller.
to the seller. Thank you very much, right? If you're reimbursing the seller, the buyer has to give the seller 10 months or 9 months and 27 days of taxes back. That is a credit to the seller
Right.
and a debit to the buyer, right? It's coming from the buyer's account, going to the seller's account. It is a debit from the buyer, credit to the seller. Everybody follow that?
Yes.
Great.
Credit, like the payment itself.
It's like a payment, anything. So, but if the seller is paying the broker fees, does the buyer get any of that money?
No, it's just from
No,
the seller to the.
just coming from the
broker, yeah.
seller to
Yeah.
the broker. So that is a debit to the seller, right? So
And a
the
credit to
seller is
the
supposed to
buyer.
go home with a certain amount of money minus any debits he has. And one of those debits that he's got to pay is the broker fee. Has no effect on the buyer whatsoever. He's not getting any of that money. So it's strictly a debit to the seller.
And
A
it's
buyer
credit to the broker.
paid, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sam.
It's credit to the broker at that point.
Yeah, but the broker is not part of the sheet. The sheet is strictly buyer seller.
Oh,
Broker is just one of the expenses. The buyer pays for a survey. The seller doesn't get any of that money. That is a debit to the buyer. Okay, nothing on the seller side, just a debit to the buyer. Then we also, that's the adjustments. We also have two different types of payments. We have an accrued payment, which is in arrears. I'll explain that to you. I don't know if she did. Did she explain this stuff to you? In
I
arrears
don't know.
or prepaid. Does it sound like brand new stuff to some of you?
In a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. So
Yes.
when you prepay something like rent is prepaid, you pay rent on the, you don't pay it at the end of the month after you live there. You pay rent at the first of the month and then you live there. That's called prepaid, right? If you were to leave in half a month, theoretically, the landlord says, here's half a month back. You didn't stay for the whole month, right? Go like this.
Yes.
I can go for,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. All right. In mortgage terms, the first day that you close on your house, you borrowed money. How much do you actually owe the bank in interest on the very first day? You just walked out of the closing, not 24 hours has expired yet. How much money in interest do you owe the bank?
Zero.
$0.
Zero.
So your
That day.
mortgage payment that you pay is in arrears. Your first payment is never due the day you close. It's due the following first of the month because they're charging you interest for the 30 days that you were living there. So when you make your mortgage payment, unlike your rent payment, you're paying at the end of the month. You're paying for time that you live there and interest that you accrued. So you're building up 30 days of interest. When you make your mortgage payment, you're paying for the last 30 days that you were there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Now I hope you got that. All right. So in a test question, if the question was that Bob is closing on the 15th of the month and he did not pay the mortgage payment on the first of the month, how much interest, how many days of interest does he owe the bank?
15 days.
He owes them
40,
15 days
45.
plus the 30
45.
days. He owes them 45 days
45.
of mortgage payments, right?
The
If he
last
didn't pay his
month.
mortgage payment, means all last month of payments he owes for 30 days
Plus
plus
15.
15 days. Everybody got that?
Yes.
Excellent. Great. All right. So we got that part. Glad I stepped. That's why I told you, whatever she says, just say, yeah, okay, fine. I'll fill you in on it because you probably spent 4 hours digesting 1,000 pieces of information
And 100 pages.
and 100 pages That's what you got right
It was a
there.
little much.
All right, so now
My
the closing
king.
statement. The closing statement, when we do we said the debits and the credits, right? So our prorations are divided in two methods. One is the 360-12-30-12 method, 360-30-12, because we have a couple of accountants here in this class, but attorneys accountants?
No.
No, they're not accountants.
No.
Attorneys are attorneys. And who conducts closings in this region?
Attorney.
Attorneys,
Lawyer.
right? They don't bring accountants in. So attorneys, this makes accountants' heads explode. An attorney will take every month and count it as a 30-day month because the math is easier. Instead of trying to figure out which month has 31 days and this one has 30 days and that one's 28 days and then that one's 30, they have to actually count it. The attorneys at the closing will count every month as a 30-day month. So they have the 360-30-12 method. The actual method is a 365 method, which means they count every single month and every single day. I've been to closings where the attorneys are off, like they're doing their math. You want to hear this one, Rita and Robin? I've been to closings where the math is off and they're off by maybe $60 in their math. And rather than go back and figure out where the $60 went, they'll just cut a check for $60 and give it to the other party so it zeroes out. How do you like that, Robin? Does that sound good in your eyes to do that? No. So that's how they do the adjustments, because the accountants are not there to do the math. They're there to just close the transaction, and they simplify it as much as possible. So we have the 360-12-30, which is the simplified method, or the 365 actually determines the actual number of days in the month. See, all bold, those letters? That means something. Okay. Anybody need to go to the bathroom or anything? It's 8 o'clock already. We're 2 hours in. You guys
Yeah,
want to
that's
take a 5-10 minute break?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
My ass hurts. I have to stand up for at least 2 minutes. Excuse the French. So I've recorded myself saying that. I'm sorry.
Joe, were we going to do some testing for the end?
That all depends if I get through it. I will.
Okay, I'm not using.
Okay. Mortgages and finance. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. We have mortgage, mortgagor, and the mortgagee. You have to remember which one is which. The mortgagor is the borrower, because the borrower gives a mortgage or the lien to the lender, right? The grantor is giving the property to the grantee. So the mortgagor is the borrower. The bank, the lender, receives the right to put the lien on the property from the borrower. So the bank is the mortgagee, the borrower is the mortgagor. All right, when we're applying for a mortgage loan, we have to get a pre-approval or pre-qualification. We used to use pre-qual in the days where everybody can get a mortgage. Today, pre-qualification really has no place in this real estate borrowing world. So a pre-qualification is, I make this much money, here's my credit, and I have this much money in the bank. Pre-approval, we have to run the credit, see bank statements, get some pay stubs, etc. Those facts are all verified, and the lender will give a letter called a pre-approval that says that based on the information that we have verified, the borrower will be allowed to, we would fund this, we would give this loan out. The commitment letter, on the other hand, informs the borrower that it's ready to fund the loan. What is the mortgage commitment? The bank is ready to fund the loan. Okay. A good faith estimate in the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, says that a good faith estimate must be provided from the lender to the borrower at the time of the loan application or within 3 business days. Okay, next, deed in lieu of foreclosure is sometimes called a friendly foreclosure. What is that? Instead of going to a foreclosure, the lender will accept a deed signed by the borrower. Here, bank, here's my deed, and they give them possession of the property. And so it's basically a friendly foreclosure, deed and keys for a release of lien. Got it? Happens all the time. Friendly foreclosure. That's an important slide right there. A deficiency judgment. The foreclosure is completed through the court proceedings when they have a foreclosure. If you have not paid the sufficient amount at the foreclosure sale, file a deficiency judgment against you, right? You signed a promissory note to repay Chase Bank 360 equal installments of whatever, $2,000 a month, and it's for a $300,000 loan. The bank foreclosed on you, took your house and sold it, and they only got $200,000. Your promissory note was that you'd repay them $300,000. They file a deficiency judgment against you for the $100,000 that you're short, right? Okay. Different types of mortgages. We have an adjustable rate mortgage, otherwise known as an ARM, ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, and it shifts the risk or reward of the changing interest rate from the lender to the borrower, right? A fixed mortgage rate. Now, the banks were just writing mortgages at 2% or 2.25% only a year ago. Now they're at 8%. So the banks, theoretically, poor banks, they're taking a hit right now because they could be getting 8% interest on that same loan. So they're the ones that took the risk. If you took an adjustable rate mortgage last year, you bought at your house at a 2 or 3% interest rate, adjustable rate mortgage, and they go, oh, don't worry about it. The rates are going to stay nice and low. The risk came your problem, and now you're at 8%. Actually, if the prime rate is at 7, then you're at 9 right now on your adjustable rate mortgage. It's usually 2% higher than the prime rate.
What is the reason somebody would get an adjusted rate?
Adjustable rate
again?
mortgage for
Yeah.
affordability. It's easier to afford because they can manipulate the payments for a lower payment now.
Mm,
And the bank will give you a lower rate because if the interest rates change, they're going to get more money from you.
mhm.
If you took a lower rate at a fixed rate and the interest rates change, the bank's getting the same money from you. The poor things.
Yep.
Yeah. So can you remember that sentence that's in dark right there? Which type of loan shifts the risk of the changing interest rate from the lender to the borrower? You would say an adjustable rate mortgage or an ARM, right? Great. A blanket mortgage. What kind of mortgage is that? That's a loan that covers multiple lots used to finance subdivisions. Which
Yeah.
type of loan covers multiple lots and is used to finance subdivision developments?
Blanket mortgage.
Blanket
Blanket
mortgage.
mortgage.
Now you got the idea. Okay, a mortgage reduction certificate. When a mortgage is being assumed or paid off early, the borrower requires a statement detailing the entire total amount due. When you call your bank and say, you know what, I just won the lottery. Hey, Chase Bank, how much exactly do I owe you so I can pay you off and get this mortgage off of my back? That's called a mortgage reduction certificate. Okay, usually the title company will call for a mortgage reduction certificate, say we're closing on November 4th, Friday, November 4th, and they say, okay, great. And then every day afterwards, there is a $45, just making up numbers, $45 per day charge for every day afterwards. Why is that? Because we close tomorrow, November 4th, but we still have to mail the check to Chase to close out the account. And Chase gets interest every single day until they receive that check in their hands. So they usually add 10 days to that amount at $45 a day, whatever it is. And if Chase gets it and cashes that check early, they send you back a few dollars because they closed early. If Chase is sitting on their desk and they didn't get to it for another week, they're going to send you personally a bill for the additional $45 a day, as much as it costs. An alienation clause in the mortgage. At the sale, your mortgage has an alienation clause that says if you sell this property, you must pay us back in full. Right? You either have an assumable mortgage, which means I can transfer it and give it to someone else and let them pay my mortgage and I walk away, or your mortgage has an alienation clause that says upon the sale of the property, you owe us the money in full. When all payments are made, you paid all your payments, your 30 years are done, or 15-year mortgage is finished, and you paid it off. The institution, the bank that the borrower, sorry, I'm tired, the lender will file with the county clerk a satisfaction of mortgage, and they have to do that within 45 days of the time that you paid them off. Charging interest above a maximum set by the state is called usury, right? In New York State, usury, what are we at, 27% interest rate in New York? But Joe, my credit card is 32%. Well, your credit card might not, that bank from that credit card might not be based in New York. It might be from another state. So New York laws are whatever that is. Anything above that is considered usury. Points. What are points? Point is 1% of the loan amount. Each point is 1% of the loan amount. APR. It is annual percentage rate. Regulation Z. Remember Regulation Z? Did you learn Regulation Z? Regulation Z is the Truth in Lending Act. Okay, it requires borrowers be advised of the annual percentage rate in writing, how much you're going to do. That's what that loan lock is, the rate lock. It's the annual percentage rate that you're going to be purchasing when you close on this property. Something you absolutely need to remember. Veterans loans, VA loans are guaranteed, and FHA loans are insured. Okay, don't forget. Buy downs, a lender willing to lower the interest rate in return for payment of extra points. Those points are considered prepaid interest. You pay points up front now, so the bank is getting some of the interest money up front. They will lower your interest rate. It's called a buy down. Loan servicing, the bank that is giving you this mortgage is not necessarily the bank that is going to be servicing that loan. You might have gone to ABC Lending Tree, and Lending Tree takes your loan and will sell it at a third party, and Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America are most likely going to buy that loan from them, or they will sell it to investors, right? That's loan servicing is handled by one company, and they can sell your loan to other institutions. The term debt service. In the commercial real estate world, we call our mortgage payment the debt service. It's different than your mortgage payment on your house. Your mortgage payment on your house, what do we call that? We call that PITI, P-I-T-I, right? Thank you, Julie. I'm sorry to cut you off. You knew the answer. Your residential mortgage is PITI, P-I-T-I, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Your mortgage payment on commercial property, they're not worried about you not paying your taxes. They'll foreclose. They're not worried about you not paying your insurance. So your mortgage payment to commercial property is only the principal and interest on the loan. So that is called the debt service. When we're talking about real estate, commercial property, mortgages, we call that payment the debt service, not the mortgage payment. Your mortgage payment, I guess that was one slide too soon. Mortgage broker. A mortgage broker is negotiating, soliciting, and processing a residential mortgage loan. That's what a mortgage broker does. Is registered by New York State Banking Authority, and they only have like, I don't know, I think it's like 30 hours. It takes less than half of the hours of credentialing to become a mortgage broker. Okay, what are we actually doing? They're just doing the same thing a real estate agent is doing. Do you own the house that you're representing the buyer and the seller for? No, you're the middleman, right? You're introducing a buyer to a seller. That's your job. Well, a mortgage broker is just like a real estate broker. They're introducing a buyer to a bank. That's their job, and they get paid a commission to see that transaction to completion.
Oh,
Right?
middleman.
That's what they're doing. A mortgage broker assists borrowers in obtaining non-conforming loans. That is a direct question. Please remember that one. It was supposed to be a yellow background. For some reason, it came out beige. It should be yellow. A mortgage banker, on the other hand, lends money. Right? How many people are we here? 28 people. We all come up with $100,000 each. 28 people, 100,000 each. We now have $2.8 million. We can get licensed by the New York State Banking Authority, and we can do mortgages. We would be a mortgage bank. And somebody says, I want to borrow $300,000. Great. We're going to get the guidelines from the banks that purchase loans from us. Chase says, here's our guidelines. Okay, great. We're going to follow all of Chase's guidelines. We're going to put the deal together. We're going to close the loan, and out of our checking account, we had $2.8 million in there, right? We took 100,000 each. We wrote a check at the closing for $300,000 and gave it to the seller on behalf of the buyer. We take our package that we just put together nice and neatly and go, hey, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, I've got a loan here from Sarah Carrier. It's perfect. She did everything. We gave her the money. It's all done by your specifications. You didn't have to pay anybody to do that. And Chase goes, great, thank you. Here's your 300 plus here's another 10,000, for example, commission for doing all the work for us. The bank puts their 300 back in the bank. They got their commission as profit. They paid the broker, the agent who handled the transaction. Here's some commission. Next, who do we want to lend money to? So these mortgage bankers, they're not lending money out for any length of time. They get reimbursed within 30 days of closing a transaction because they sell it, right? So they're only using a small amount of money. We literally, 28 of us can open a mortgage bank tomorrow. Want to do it? Anybody want to do it? Make a lot of money. Interest rates, 8%. How much money are you getting on your money in the bank?
1%. If that.
1%, right? We can make 8% starting tomorrow. All right. A mortgage
So
bank
a
lends
broker
money.
helps. Sorry, a broker helps a potential buyer find
Right.
a loan.
And they
a
shop.
good loan.
They're not
Yeah.
using their money. That mortgage broker is calling up and they say, okay, what is the criteria that Sarah has? She's got this much income. She's a nurse. She does this. She did whatever her criteria is. She's putting this much down, and they'll shop across the country. And they have
Gotcha.
a big database, and they look for the best loan to meet her needs at the lowest price. Whoever, every morning, the banks are giving out different rates as well. All right. A mortgage banker, on the other hand, is lending money. They're using their money. Next topic, land use. Individual property owners and subdivision developers restrict the use to which land can be put. We call those either deed restrictions or restrictive covenants. The government has the authority, we gave it to them, for taxation. They have the authority of police power, the power to preserve order, protect public health and safety, and promote the general welfare of the population. They also have the rights of eminent domain through condemnation. They privately own land which is obtained for public use is either appropriation, they will take it and pay you for it, they will give you compensation, or if you don't want to sell the land to them, they will condemn it and take it from you, right? We did this one already. Next is the power that the state has is called the power of escheat. If you, as an owner dies, has no natural heirs and no will to leave their assets to, New York State will sell all your property and put that money in their state bank account. And that process of New York State taking your assets is called escheat. Great. Government also has the power of taxation. Property taxes are called ad valorem tax, right? It is a priority lien, first lien on the property. Regardless of when you didn't pay your taxes, taxes always bump up to the first position. They're based on not the market value. Property taxes are based on the assessed value of the property. Okay, based on where it's located is what the assessed value is. There are some exemptions. Some people have exemptions. Seniors with no school-age children, veterans have a maximum tax credit of $5,000 annually, maximum credit that they have for veterans, and they also have the what do they call the star, silver star? What is that?
The star and the enhanced star.
Yeah, the star and enhanced star is for school children, people with children. That's an exemption, but the people in the military that were killed in battle, what do they call those? It's another
Gold Star families.
Gold Star
Gold
family, yeah. So you get exemptions if you're a Gold Star family as well.
Oh, well.
Okay, the local municipality is responsible for regulating zoning and zoning laws. Random statement. What does that mean? What happens? Establishing a tax rate begins with adopting a budget. What is the first thing a municipality does when they're trying to establish the tax rate?
Adopting a budget.
Adopt a budget, right? We don't have a budget. We don't know how much to tax you. Building departments, what do? They issue permits to make sure the code is followed. They give out, after everything is completed, certificate of authority, also known as a C of O. When all the permits are completed and all the inspections are completed, you still need a certificate of occupancy. That information is sent to the tax assessor's office, and then they knock on your door and go, "Thanks so much for fixing your house. You owe us more money now." The Office of Receiver of Taxes, what do? They collect taxes, they write the checks, and they keep tax records. What are they going to be looking for? The Office of Receiver of Taxes collects taxes. Tax assessments. In New York, we have historically mandated that property is assessed for tax purposes at full market value. The assessed value is at full market value. They try and they do their best to gradually bring your, it's called equalization. From this time you bought your property, they gradually raise it over a 5-year period to full market value, right? You're buying a house that the taxes are $22,000 on the house, but that was based on the house being worth $500,000. You just bought it for $720,000. So they don't just say, "Oh, it was based on 500. Now it's 720. You owe us an extra $10,000. They have an equalization time period that takes 5 years. They raise it 20% a year for 5 years until it's at full market value assessment. Okay. If we feel we have an assessment that's unfair, what do? We file a grievance called a protest, right? This grievance that we file is called an Article 78 proceeding. That's going to court. We go to the Supreme Court is where that actually, those court cases are called an Article 78 proceeding. First thing you do is you say, hey, wait, my taxes are high. The guy next door, his taxes are one rate. The guy on that side, his taxes are lower than mine, and I'm 10,000 higher than both of them. That's not fair. I'm going to check the assessment roll. That's the first document we're going to check and see how much is Bob next door paying in taxes and how much is that guy and every other house in the neighborhood that's like mine, how much are they paying? That's on the assessment roll. I'm going to go and for this grievance to the grievance committee and I'm going to show them the other assessments. Sometimes they say, you know what, you're absolutely right. I don't know how that happened. We're going to reduce your taxes. And sometimes they say, too bad. Your taxes are not going to change. And you have a right to go before the Supreme Court. It's called an Article 78 proceeding and bring that all your information and try to sue the municipality, not to get money, but to lower your taxes. Okay. Also, a random statement on there, a property's location on the tax map is called situs. It's just a Latin term. It's a single sentence. You will need to know what situs is.
Like where it
Situs
sits.
is a similar, right? That's right. But
Yeah.
it's a Latin term, right? Property's location is called situs. That's a good way to remember it. Where is the property sitting? This Article 78 proceeding challenges an assessment. They call that challenging a grievance. We're filing an appeal for property tax reduction. It's called an Article 78 proceeding. The county health department, there's one for each county. Their job, they have a lot of different jobs, public awareness and everything, but their main function is to monitor septic and sanitation systems, wells and water supply. Infrastructure, part of the master plan when we talked about our municipal chapter. Infrastructure, what is infrastructure? Improvements like
Roads.
roads, public buildings, schools, and utilities. So a question that says improvements such as roads, public buildings, schools, and utilities are all part of a community's infrastructure. Okay, great. Moving on to chapter 15, a site is a piece of land has been prepared for construction or some sort of an improvement. Capiche? Great. When we're preparing that site, one of the site preparation, part of site preparation is the soil erosion prevention. That's keeping the groundwater from washing away, water from washing the soil that we've disturbed onto other properties or out into the road. Plans, elevations, and blueprints are scale drawings or renderings of the improvement, whatever we're going to add on there. Plans, elevations, and blueprints are scale drawings or renderings of the improvement. What kind of house is a 1.5-story house?
Keep cut.
Thank you. Two different types of concrete foundations. One is a concrete slab foundation. One is pier and beam foundation. Concrete slab, pier and beam. Right? What's the type of wood framing? What do we call the wood framing? It's called post and beam. Wood framing is that barn style. It's called post and beam. Foundation, pier and beam. Bearing walls support a building's floors, ceilings, and roof. For the state exam, dimensional lumber is considered wood that has a moisture content of 19% or less. Not going to be on school test. Sheathing. What do we do with sheathing? It's applied directly to the exterior wall studs. You are going to love me when you take this test. Sheathing is directly applied to the exterior wall studs. When a contractor completes a project and has all his inspections, he still needs A, B, C, or D, a certificate of occupancy. Sometimes it says C of O. Cap insulation. That's the most valuable insulation in the house. It is found under the attic floor. See, standing on a piece of plywood, that's the floor of the attic. That insulation belongs under the attic floor. Fiberglass is the most commonly used insulation material. Modern bathtubs are usually made of
Fiber.
Fiberglass.
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 Thank you. How many amps are required in New York State minimum on a
100.
service panel?
100.
100 amps. An electrical system is routed through a circuit box or circuit panel.
Right.
The valuation process. I don't know if you guys on Saturday are doing valuation with Christina. So when she's talking, just go blah, 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 blah. Just read a paper or something like that. Read a magazine. Here's what you need to know. Valuation process, the certification. I know when you guys did valuation in the evening class, your head probably was exploding that night. I can guarantee you.
Whole chapters.
140 pages.
Yes,
I had students-
110%.
Yeah, I had
100%.
students call me up in the past and they
I
said,
agree.
she asked us to print this. It's 160 pages. Do I have to print it? I said, throw it in the garbage. Sorry you wasted all that ink and paper. Here's what you need to know. Part of the valuation process. A licensed or certified appraiser. The certification of or licensing of appraisers is not required for all appraisal work, but it is necessary for appraisals related to mortgage loans. So you don't need to be a licensed or certified appraiser if someone says, hey, Julia, I would like you to come over and tell me how much my house is worth. I want to sell it. We call that a CMA, comparative market analysis. Someone says to me, Joe, you're a broker. I would like you to tell me how much you think my house is worth. That's called a BPO, broker price opinion. If the bank does not go by your opinion, Julia, and doesn't go by my opinion, a mortgage loan goes by the opinion only of a licensed, certified appraiser only. A bank will not take any other opinion. So challenging an appraiser when somebody comes by and the appraiser comes by and it's not what the purchase price is, the bank doesn't care what you think. They don't care what anybody thinks except for this independent person called a licensed appraiser or a certified appraiser. They want their unbiased opinion of the property. They have nothing to gain, whether it's high or low. They're independent to the business. As a matter of fact, after 2008, banks cannot directly speak to an appraiser. They used to call up, hey, Bob. Yeah, hi, it's Joe. I need another appraisal done. Yeah, this one came in. I need it to come in at 550. And the appraiser goes, no problem. I want Joe to keep calling me. I'm bringing this in at 550. And they were bringing appraisals were coming in all the time on the money. And the value of homes was artificially increasing. So they came up at the 2008 crash. They said appraisers are not allowed to speak to the bank. When the bank calls, they call an intermediary, this middleman, and say, this is Chase Bank. We would like an appraisal at 123 Cherry Street. Thank you very much. That other company will hire an appraiser on behalf of the bank. Until the appraisal is complete, the appraiser cannot communicate with the bank. No communication with the mortgage officer or the buyer. Cannot communicate with them until it's complete. The principles of valuation. Highest and best use. We look at it as vacant or as improved, right? This is part of value of property. We're looking at real property and they want to value property for its highest and best use. What is the best use for this property? Every investor wants, but there's already a building on it. So we look at the highest and best use as vacant. So we have this structure here. What can we do with this building? Or as improved, meaning we don't want what's here. We're going to knock it down, start fresh with new property. Which one's going to make more money for the investor? Okay. So now we've got a piece of land that is zoned for commercial property, but the neighborhood that it's in, about the only thing you could do with this size property is make a parking lot out of it. They changed the zoning and now it's zoned for residential property. Now you could throw some houses on that property. The highest and best use has increased or changed because of the zoning. It could change for the worse too. If they change the zoning and your lot, which hasn't been built on yet, changes, and now you thought you were going to build houses on it, and you sat on the lot for a couple of years, you went back and you applied to build some houses, and they go, oh, geez, sorry, Sam, we just changed the zoning on that. Can't put homes there anymore. The only thing you could do with that is leave it as a parking lot or something else. And now the highest and best use has changed because of the zoning. Okay, red letters, slide, you got the picture. All right, what is the agent's role in the comparative market analysis? Our job is to thoroughly explain the CMA, the comparative market analysis, and what the outcome is. Who decides how much the house is going to get listed for? The agent or the
seller.
seller? The
The
seller,
seller.
right? You could talk to them all you want. I got one of those today. I don't want to get into the story. It's too long. But you're going to explain to them, I did my market analysis. Here's what I have. I'm going to explain what it means. I'm going to show you all the active, all the under contract, and all the expired listings. And we're going to come to a determination why they expired, too high, no good exposure. Why are these on the market? How did they compare to what already sold? Because everything has to go with comparative. That means comparing against other properties, okay? The basic principle of valuation in the real estate world is called substitution, okay? Substitution is what it would cost to buy something of equal utility, and that term equal utility means something identical, right? So it's easy in the residential world. I'm looking at a 4-bedroom colonial. All I have to do is find in the vicinity how much the nearest 4-bedroom colonial sold, and I have an idea of how much the value of my property is based on the market conditions, interest rates, etc. And there's changes. What if I can't find a 4-bedroom colonial? All I could find is a 3-bedroom colonial, or all I could find is a bi-level ranch, or only Cape Cods. Then I have to do adjustments. I have to add for square footage, add for bedrooms, add for the lot size, etc., until I can come up with some sort of equalization. There's only 3 bedrooms instead of 4. So they have to put a value on that 4th bedroom and say, okay, this house, that one has 3, sold for $500,000. This one has 4. A bedroom is worth, maybe, depending on the appraiser's opinion, they know the area, that 4th bedroom might be worth an extra $30,000. So that $500,000 house has a value of $530,000 based on the adjustments that are made. Okay. Substitution is what it would cost to purchase another property of equal utility. Market value. Market value is a probable price if a property, what a property will bring in an open market offered by an informed seller, allowing reasonable time to find a buyer with knowledge of all the uses to what he can use the property for. Remember, this is not just residential homes. We're talking about commercial buildings also. Okay, so what is the actual definition of market value? Red letters. Neither the buyer nor seller, being under pressure or duress, come to a meeting of the minds. That is the definition of market value. No pressure, buyer and seller agree on a price. That's market value. Got it?
Yeah.
Yes.
The bank, on the other hand, says, we don't care what you want to buy it for, Ilona. I don't care that you want to spend $50,000 more than it's worth. That is market value. But the bank says, if you're getting a mortgage, we're only going to lend you up to this much money because that guy said that's all it's worth. If you want to spend more, you kick in the rest. We're not lending you anymore. We have increased the value of homes because that $500,000 house, somebody wanted it so badly, they paid $580,000 for that house. So guess what? After it closes, that's the new market value for that house. That is the new value of that home because that's what somebody paid for it. Okay. Appraisal has 3 different approaches when we're doing real estate appraisal. The sales comparison approach, right? We have sales comparison. What sold just like this property, identical to it? So what if you have a church and the church building goes out, and it's not a Roman Catholic church, that's impossible to price, but you have a building that was housed for, I don't know, four unit strip mall, and there's not another strip mall in the entire region. I can't compare it to anything. So sales comparison usually works with residential properties. We're comparing a Cape Cod. We got to find another Cape Cod in the area, what it's sold for. It's a similar property. That's a sales comparison. How much did the recent, I want to know how much my house costs. Really happy. A guy 3 doors down just sold his house for way more money than I ever thought my house was worth. Terrific. So if I'm going to sell my house, I'm using that as a comparison for the value of this house. That's a sales comparison. But what if there's no comparables? What if you're in a brick building that's 3 stories high and there's nothing like it? Nothing like it anywhere. Can't find anything comparable to this building. How do we put a price on it? They go by the cost approach. They figure the value of the land, permits, construction, brick by brick, labor, materials, everything, start to finish to build a building. That's called the cost approach. And that's the value of that building. And then they have the capitalization approach. How much money does this building earn? The value of the building based on a reasonable capitalization rate is how they come up with the value of the building. The building has an 8% return on investment. It makes X dollars in income. The value of that property has a dollar value to it. So the 3 approaches to appraisal: sales comparison, cost approach, income cap. Did she use this slide, by the way?
No.
No. Okay, great, because that's my slide. I think she stole it once. All right, chapter 17 coming up. Human rights and fair housing. A couple things we need to know. We need to know the Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibits all types of racial discrimination, right? No exceptions. We cannot discriminate based on race. 0 exceptions. Blockbusting, inducing homeowners to sell using scare tactics. Steering, channeling home seekers to particular areas based on their makeup, whether it's where they come from, who they pray to, what color they are, etc. Channeling home seekers to or away from property based on their ethnic or religious makeup. Got it? So you can be found guilty of steering someone to a neighborhood or away from a neighborhood based on who's there and who they want. Redlining, denying applications in specific areas without regard to economic qualifications. That has to do with banks and insurance companies, okay? Not writing mortgages, not writing any kind of loans, and not writing insurance policies because, oh, we don't insure houses in that neighborhood. We don't do mortgages in that neighborhood. That's called redlining. HUD advertising. The fair housing poster and logo are displayed where the broker conducts business. You'll figure it out. You just keep studying these slides over and over and over again. Then you're going to read a question and then you're going to go, I know where the broker conducts business. Okay, you're probably not going to have to, what's going to happen is you're going to need to know the 7 federally protected classes. One of those is going to be different or one of those is going to be missing. You got to remember the 7 federally protected classes. And you also, most likely on the New York State exam, need to remember which one in New York State are also included in that list: age, marital status, sexual orientation, military status, and gender. Okay. And then New York City, I'm not sure if this one, I haven't had anybody take a test recently that came back and told me this, but just in case, citizenship status, lawful occupation, lawful source of income are also included for New York City. Moving right along, Chapter 18, septic systems we talked about. We said that the septic tank, where's my mouse? Septic tank, we said this was a leaching field. That is a septic system when there's no public sewers available. We also talked about certified professionals. When asbestos is encountered, we have a couple of options: asbestos removal or encapsulation. If we see asbestos and it's not a problem, we could leave it alone. We could encapsulate it. They have special tape you can wrap around it. You can build a box out of drywall or out of anything so that it's not exposed to anybody. If it has to be removed, it has to be done by a certified professional, okay? Normally, asbestos was discovered. It was not a problem, did not seem to be a problem. What could you do with the asbestos? The answer is leave it alone. Certified professionals, let's look at that. Mold, if it has to be removed, has to be done by a certified professional. Wood destroying insects, if they're discovered, their elimination and removal has to be done by a licensed pest control and pest chemical applicator. That person is a certified professional. If radon is discovered, it's an easy fix, can be done by a non-professional. Oil storage tanks, underground storage tanks. Tanks that are 1,100 gallons or more are regulated by New York State. I know we did a couple of practice tests last week with some of the classes. You recognize some of these questions? A lot of them are just popping up, right? They didn't come up with a lot of new stuff. Let's put it this way. I'm just not giving you the brand new test.
That's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that sucks for you guys. CERCLA, Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act. That has to do with environmental spills and cleanups. The landowner could be liable in an active case. A landlord may be liable regardless of whether the contamination is his fault or the fault of the previous owners, right? You get that? In this Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, CERCLA. We also have SARA, Superfund Amendment Reauthorization Act, will determine, because the government steps in and they don't say, okay, Julia, you guys grab some shovels, go rent the backhoe and you do your own cleanup. The government, EPA says, no, you're not doing this yourself. We will take care of it. This New York State has put in place the CERCLA Act that does the cleanup. They're responsible to make sure it complies, is done correctly. They're not bringing in an independent contractor to do it. They're doing it. They want to get their money back. So the Superfund Amendment Reauthorization Act is going after whoever was the perpetrator that contaminated the property in the first place. If you did your due diligence when you bought the property, then they will overlook you and go to find who you bought it from and find out and get the money from them. They want to get reimbursed for the money that they're laying out for the cleanup, okay? Focus on dark, bold letters. Next chapter, look at that. We spent 4 hours on environmental and we're out of the chapter already. We spent 4 hours on fair housing and we're out of the chapter already. Income tax issues. Your primary residence, that's the address where an occupant files their income tax. Whatever property you file your income tax, that is for how many? 2 out of the last 5 years, that is your primary residence, okay? That sale of that residence, in order to qualify for the $500,000 as a married couple, $250,000 as an individual filer, you must reside in that location, your primary residence, for 2 out of 5 years. How do we know what your primary residence is? That's where the address that you filed your income taxes for 2 years. Okay. Some of the deductions, what are permitted for a typical residential primary residence? Deductions are property taxes, special assessments, which are property taxes. They just benefit you and your block maybe, but not the entire community, right? Remember special assessments? I don't think I did that with you. Special assessments. So they gave you, everybody had septic systems, and they came down your street, Marcy, and they put sewers in. They didn't get to the rest of the neighborhood. They just put sewers on your block. So your taxes go up to pay for the sewers on your block. Down the block, they don't have sewers yet. They're not paying that yet. Once everybody has it, then it just gets added to your taxes. But in the meantime, it's called a special assessment. It's still your taxes, but it's only for the people it benefited, not the whole community. They might put sidewalks on your block. That assessment, you get taxed for that. That assessment is taxed for you. They didn't get to the sidewalks 3 blocks away yet. They only did your block. Here's your special assessment. They're wintertime now. We're not doing it anymore. In March, when they start again, and they do that block down the street, they'll get an assessment bill as well. It's still property taxes. So property taxes, special assessments, and mortgage interest are permitted deductions on your primary residence. IRS rules for acquisition and financing points, we said, were considered prepaid interest. So the year of closing, points are deductible because points are interest and interest is deductible. Okay, any taxes that you paid that year are considered deductible for your primary residence. In closing costs, that's it. If you prepaid some of your property taxes, that's deductible because taxes and interest is deductible. For commercial property, income producing property, that house that you rent out to somebody, that's income producing property, everything is deductible on that particular property. As a matter of fact, if you were to buy a house, you have a house right now and you roll that house into an LLC, you become the tenant. Everything that you do is deductible on that house. So income producing property, all expenses on it are deductible. If you have a second home, it's just your second home. All you can write off on your second home is your mortgage interest and your property taxes. If it's
Same thing.
rented out, it's income producing property. And what can we do with income producing property? Deduct everything. Everything's deductible, right? So if you lease it out for more than 2 weeks out of the year, it's considered income producing property. Follow?
Yeah.
Great. Homestead property. What is homestead property? Any owner occupied property. It is any dwelling with less than 4 units, 4 or less is homestead property. 5 or more is considered commercial property. Even though people live in a 5-unit, 10-unit, 20-unit apartment building, it's considered commercial property, non-homestead. Okay. Mobile homes, if they're owner occupied, residential condos, farms, some vacant land as well. Non-homestead real estate in New York, industrial and commercial property. Again, even though people live there, a 10-unit apartment building is still considered non-homestead. It's taxed at a much higher rate than homestead property. Capital gains. We have capital gains. We said when we buy property, the purchase price is the basis. That's the cost of the property, what we bought it for. Then over the years, we did some capital improvements. Over the years, I added an addition on the house. I put a brand new circular driveway in instead of the straight driveway. I put a 30-year roof instead of the 20-year roof that I had. There's a difference between a capital improvement and a repair, right? A boiler that breaks, replacing it is a repair. Improving your boiler by putting a new, more efficient boiler is a capital improvement. It's up to the contractor, by the way, because they're saving on sales tax by making everything a capital improvement. The responsibility falls on the contractor doing the work, whether it was a repair or a capital improvement. If he comes into a house, the contractor walks in your house and your carpet is all torn up and he's bringing in new carpets, that's not a capital improvement. And it is his determination based on what he puts on there, whether he's going to charge you sales tax or not, right? That's their responsibility. And the difference is, if it's sales tax, it's a repair. A capital improvement is non-taxable to that, okay? Sales tax, that is.
Joe,
Yes.
will we have to calculate an adjusted basis? Will that be one of the questions? No. Okay.
No, it's not on the slides. It's not a problem. Okay, so it might be one or two, something, but not calculating the gain or loss.
Excuse me, Joe, which one is not tax deductible? The capital or the?
Repairs, you have to pay sales tax on repairs. Capital improvements are not taxable for sales tax, that is. They
Okay.
increase the value of your home. And so we have the basis is the purchase price, plus any capital improvements become the adjusted basis. When you sell the house, if you sold it for more money than that, that's a gain. It means you made a profit. If you sold it for less money than you bought it for, plus the improvements, then that's a loss. You don't get any money back if it's a loss, but if on your taxes, you might be able to squash that. But if you made money, profit, remember we have 500,000 of profit for a married couple filing jointly, or 250 as an individual, that is the amount that you don't pay tax on based on the gain of the property. The three classifications of income we said are active, passive, and portfolio. There you go. Depreciation. Straight line depreciation has a cost recovery. What do we call it? Cost recovery? Depreciation is another word for cost recovery. And we said residential income producing property, not your house you live in, your income producing property has a depreciation period of 27.5 years for cost recovery. So we take the value of the home, subtract 20% because the land does not depreciate, and we divide that by 27.5, and that's the amount we get to write off each year for the value of your property. Well, guess what? Next year, if your appraisal comes in or your assessment of your house is worth more money, that divided by 27.5 is a higher deduction next year for this year. 2 years from now, that property went up 100,000 in value, divided by 27.5, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so residential income property, 27.5 years, commercial investment property, 39 years. And it's 80% of the value, not 100% of the value. No one's going to ask you to calculate that either. You need to know 27.5 residential, 39 commercial. See dark letters, bold, big.
Is there a recovery period for a personal primary residence?
No.
No.
Nope. Screw the little guy. That's the motto of the government. Screw the little guy. You have an opportunity though, Kimberly. Everybody has an opportunity to go ahead, buy some property,
Right.
open an LLC, buy property, put it in the name of the LLC, pay yourself rent, and you can write off everything. And it is treated as income producing property. And then all of these things apply to you. Or you can just go buy it. Go read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, follow Robert Kiyosaki a little bit and figure out how some of this stuff works, because it's really good. And then watch Dave Ramsey as well, because Dave Ramsey is great also. He's going to get you out.
It's good.
Kiyosaki.
All right. So in the 1031 like kind exchanges, a 1031 like kind exchange. Remember that? Somebody
Yeah.
has a building, you don't sell the building, because if you just plain sell the building and you hold it for a while, you got to pay tax on all the gain that you made, plus all the depreciation that you've been writing off all those years in your income taxes have to get added back in, so you pay this tremendous amount of tax. So instead, investors can reinvest, sell the building, find something within 45 days, has to be identified, and within 6 months, 180 days, close on the purchase of the property, and there is zero tax if it's an equal purchase, okay? The seller must close on the replacement. See those big letters right there? Learn that sentence, please. A
Seller must
seller
close.
must close on the replacement properties the earlier of 180 days from the sale or before the tax return due date, including extension, verbatim. Just remember that sentence, because you're going to say the earlier of the tax return due date, the later of the tax return due date, and then two things that are completely way off. It is the earlier of the tax return date. Okay. Back to now chapter 21, moving right along. Liquidity. Real estate is considered illiquid. Why? Because it cannot be sold immediately. Okay. It cannot be converted into cash quickly. It has to be sold. You have to find a buyer. Unlike every other kind of investor, I sell my stock. They don't say, oh, you want out of General Motors, Sam? Wait, I got to go find somebody that wants to buy your stock. We just found out last year, Ethereum and Bitcoin, that's the problem with those stocks. With those type of currency, you got to find a buyer, right? Another topic for another day. All right. Next, risk. What are the 3 types of risk that an investor is going to examine? Business risk, capital risk, financial risk. Thank you very much. Okay, what are the 3 phases an investor goes through when they're looking at property? 3 phases are acquisition, holding, and reversion. Acquisition is when you buy the property. The holding period is the period from the time you bought it and it earns you money. Reversion is when you turn it back into cash, means you sold the property. It's no longer earning you any money. Got it?
So
Acquisition,
holding it is
holding, and
holding
reversion.
it. Holding it is when you're holding the property and it raises in value over time.
It raises in value, but you're also earning income on.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right? I mean, theoretically, your house you're living in from the time you bought it till the time you sell it, that's the holding period. But in commercial real estate, we're concerned about the holding period because I want it to earn me money. You bought your house, you're living in it, and you're enjoying the benefits of living in it. And someday when you sell it, hopefully the market value goes up a lot and you sell it and you make money. Investors don't want to do that. They're not living in the property. Investors are buying it. And for the holding period, it's supposed to be earning them money. It's earning them a return on their original investment, otherwise known as a cash on cash return, known as equity dividend rate. Okay. Also, the pro forma statement. Remember that pro forma statement? So your your question might say a theoretical projection of future operating income is found on a pro forma statement. The key words: projection, theoretical, future. It didn't happen yet. The pro forma statement. Wow, you guys are flying in and out of here. The pro forma statement didn't happen yet. Okay, it's not an actual budget. It's a budget, but it didn't happen yet. It's all theoretical. What if I buy the building and the rent is this much? I can increase the rent. I can make it more efficient. I can double up some of the units, make some 3 families. Maybe I'll turn all the units into studios and make more money. Whatever it is, the pro forma is this theoretical future, what we could do to generate more income. Fixed expenses. Remember, we have variable expenses and fixed expenses. Remember that? Variable expenses, fixed expenses. Fixed expenses do not vary as a result of occupancy rate. For those of you on the weekend class that haven't done this yet, next week when I'm talking, just read a paper. I don't care what you do. Watch a movie, because this is all you need to know. fixed expenses don't change as a result of occupancy. And those fixed expenses are property taxes. Maria, you're in the weekend class. I'm going to ask you a question. If the property taxes are $100,000 on a building, right? 100,000. Building is 50-unit apartment building. The building is 100% occupied. How much are the property taxes?
100%, right?
100,000, right?
Mhm.
Half the people move out of the building. How much are the taxes?
50,000.
Really?
50%.
Really?
Moving out?
If half the people move out, the government lets you pay half the taxes?
Oh, no. Yeah, it's still
Right, so the
same.
taxes, fixed expenses, the taxes do not change based on occupancy.
But
Your
even it's
property
empty,
insurance, your property insurance is the same whether your building's full or your building's empty. Your
Correct.
taxes are the same whether the building's full or empty. So those are considered fixed expenses.
Mm.
Every other expense changes periodically based on occupancy. They're considered variable expenses. Capitalization. What is the actual definition of capitalization? It is the present value of annual income based on future benefits. Boom. And the cash on cash return is also known as the equity dividend rate.
Hmm.
That's the profit an investor receives on the cash they invested. That all those test questions that we did, those sample questions, the building, it was $2 million building. He invested 500,000 in a $2 million building. Is the fact that the building's worth 2 million relevant to the question at all? No. He's only interested in how much did my 500 make? Right?
Yeah.
Not interested in the value of the building. That value of the building is going to come into play in 5 years from now when I sell it. Right now, I'm watching my $500,000. How much did it earn this year? Because I could have put it in the bank. I could have put it in the stock market. Instead, I bought a property with it. How much is my money earning me? That's my cash on cash return. There's a formula for calculating effective gross income. Some people have got some internet connection problems, I guess.
I
We're
know.
coming in out of here. It's okay, though. I'm not counting your hours. It's all on you. So the formula for calculating the effective gross income. The effective gross income is EGI. Could be EGI, okay? Effective gross income. It is the potential gross income plus other income minus vacancy and collection loss is the effective gross income. Potential gross income, we said, was fully occupied building. Everybody pays the rent on time, no vacant units, right? That's our potential gross income. That is the maximum potential this building can earn, plus other income, laundry unit, charging for people to use the swimming pool. I'm renting out towels at the pool, any other income, soda machine on every floor, etc. That's other income. Minus vacancy and collection losses, because vacancy, there are some units that are empty because we said in earlier chapters, when a tenant moves out, landlord loses a month, right? So we have to count that. We have to subtract that out. We have to also subtract the fact that not everybody pays their rent on time or at all. Those are collection losses. So we have to subtract that out, and that's our effective gross income. That's the real number of how much this building makes, not 100 units fully occupied, everybody pays their rent on time. We have to subtract out the people that don't pay and the fact that there are going to be empty units. Yes, Julia?
Joe, we gonna do any math about this formula?
I just gave you what you need to know.
Good, thank you.
Yay.
Don't ask anymore.
All right, but you got to remember, because one of those is going to be missing. The question might say potential gross income, effective gross income equals vacancy and collection loss plus other income and something's missing, or potential gross income plus other income minus blank, is effective gross income. You got to, one of those is going to be missing. You got to fill in the blanks. So you got to remember the formula there. That's the part you do. I think that's harder than the math.
You said other income could be like a parking spot or like a garage. or
Any
something
other
like that, like-
income potential, this is what, for knowledge, yes. For test, PGI plus other income minus vacancy and collection loss equals effective gross income. That'll
Gotcha.
be in any combination, and any one of those could be missing, and you got to figure out which one's missing.
Gotcha.
The tax world for investment property establishes the tax consequences resulting from a property's income operations. That's known as book value, right? So that is our after-tax dollars. The same way, theoretically, you're working from your paycheck, your book value, even though you make $2,000 a week, if after taxes, your paycheck comes to you and you only have $1,000, your book value is $1,000. Got it? That's equivalent to book value in real property. Doesn't matter what it makes. How much do you actually get to keep after taxes? That's your book value. Okay, remember we said on commercial property space, we have rentable area. That's the total square footage of the building. The usable area is the actual place that the tenants can rent. The landlord can make money. The spaces the landlord cannot rent, he considers a loss. I can't rent the hallway out. That is the loss factor. The hallway, the lobby, the restrooms, the slop sink room, everything else that can't be rented out is a loss to who? To the landlord. All right. So that space that can't get rented to the landlord is a loss. Poor me. What am I going to do with it? Landlord, I'm going to add it to the tenants. So the tenants see it as a burden, right? They call it like a burden. So that burden, it's called a load. That's a load to the tenant or an add-on. The tenant has 1,000 square feet. He's got to pay a 20% load. He's got to add on 20% more square footage because of all the space they can't rent out. The landlord sees that area, the difference between the rentable area and the usable area to the landlord is the loss factor. Or the question might say, the rentable area from the usable area from the rentable area to the tenant is either the load or an add-on. Got it?
Yeah. Low, how do you spell that? Low, you mean low? like
L-O-A-D.
high,
We'll
low?
do it on the weekend.
Okay,
L-O-A-D.
okay.
All right. The tenant, it's an add-on. The landlord, it's a loss. Okay. And the tenants pay the additional load based on their proportionate share. Different types of leases. We have gross lease, net lease, and percentage lease. And the percentage lease, we said we had a set amount called a break point. It's a break even. Anything you earn above that, you would pay a percentage to the landlord. These are the most common types of leases that we have out there. We have our lease escalation clause. In a lease escalation clause, we said a lease escalation clause allows a landlord to raise the rent. They can be raised in different increments, but it is used to pass through all the increased costs in property operations. The base year, that base year is used to calculate all the increases. The pass-throughs we said that we can pass through are taxes, insurance, and common area maintenance. Remember that? The landlord is allowed to pass those items through to the tenant. That's number one. Then we have our increases. We have either a step increase, we said was a graduated increase or step increase, or we have an index lease. And the index lease is based on the consumer price index and the Porter wage escalation formula, which is salaries go up because unions pay more money, your rent goes up based on the CPI and the Porter wage escalation formula. just different ways to raise the rent it also covers the cost to the landlord, passing it on to the tenants. Commercial leases, we said we have a use clause. We had a attornment clause, which the landlord will accept rent only from the one party named on the lease in the attornment clause. We said that attornment, it is representation that I signed a lease with my landlord. And my landlord name is ABC Realty or ABC Management Company. I am agreeing in that attornment clause that I'm only going to accept rent from the one party. If the landlord changes names, I'm not required to pay the rent to that person. I change my name, landlord's not allowed to collect rent from me if there is an attornment clause in there, right? So we also have this thing called an estoppel certificate. An estoppel certificate says, I showed you guys, and I'll show you guys on the weekend what the certificate is, but that estoppel certificate is acknowledging my start date, my end date, how much rent I pay, the name of my company, and all the things that we agreed to in the lease. I'm presenting to the new owner of the building, and I'm accepting him, and I'm stating that I'm going to pay him, and here's my lease, because they don't have to. It's not like a residential lease. A commercial lease is completely different because people change names, businesses change names all the time. They buy and sell each other. When you sign a residential lease, you're going to be you your whole life. The landlord isn't necessarily going to be the same person. The landlord might be a different landlord. That's why residential leases run with the land. You sign a lease, Maria, with your landlord for your apartment. That landlord sells the building. Your lease, they gave you bundles, some of the bundle of rights. You possess those. So if the landlord sells the building, you're holding on to those rights. Those rights are not transferred the same in commercial real estate. Kimberly, you have your hand up?
Can you give another example for a estoppel certificate? Because I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, were you here on in the evening?
I was here. I just got distracted during that
Yeah,
part.
so just read the I don't want to lose anybody's focus because the slides that I gave you have an actual estoppel form on there. Take a look at it. It's going to say how much my rent is, the name of my company, when my lease starts, when my lease ends for the new owner. You're telling the new owner of the building before he buys it. Before a new owner buys the building, he's going to go to every single tenant and say, I need you to fill this form out, acknowledging how much your rent is, when your lease started, when your lease ended, and you're going to cooperate and pay me, the new owner, when I buy the building, this rent.
Oh,
Got it?
yeah. So everything that's due, it's going to be in that certificate.
Because otherwise you made an agreement with Bob Jones from ABC Management, and now Bob just sold it to Bill Schwartz from XYZ Management, and you legally could say, I don't know you. You're not the person I agreed to pay this money to.
Right.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? Ooh, we're doing great. Property management, chapter 22. A property manager's job. What's a job of a property manager? Maximize income while maintaining the value of the property. Got it? That's the job. What is the main function of a property manager, Ilona?
What is it? Say it
What is the
again.
main function of a property manager?
Main function
Yeah, what's their main job? What is the job of the property manager?
to maximize the income of maintaining the value of the property, or
Excellent answer. How did you come up with such a great answer? That is perfect answer. It almost sounds like it came out of the book. Perfect answer. Thank you very much. Okay, so property manager prepares a budget annually. How often do they prepare their budget, property manager? Annually. Great. So this budget is a detailed operating budget. It anticipates revenues and expenses, right? They're looking for income, putting some money aside for reserves, for any kind of emergencies. They put money aside for a future capital expense. We're saving up money to put a new parking lot in. They have a stabilized budget for all the fixed expenses and variable expenses. They have a budget for separately. That budget, that bill is prepared annually. The management agreement. There's a management proposal. That is, here, I'm the property manager, here, building owner. Here's my proposal on what I will do if you hire me. The management agreement is the contract that we sign that says, I'm going to manage your property for 1 year. Usually property management agreements are 1 to 2 years. They have a clause in them that says that they can cancel in 30 days, but the contract is usually a 1 to 2 year contract. And because managing property is almost always a commercial transaction, when do we need agency disclosure form? First substantive
At the
contract
first, yeah.
for 1 to 4, 1 to 4 family units, condos, and co-ops. So we don't need an agency disclosure form. The agency relationship is described in the management agreement. So the management agreement creates agency between the property owner and the property manager. Got that? Red letters, big, bold.
I just had a question. You said a real estate broker is usually considered a special agent. Is it?
In the property management, you are a general agent.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Usually a real estate broker is considered a special agent. In this particular version, you're a general agent. Property manager is a general agent. We have multiple tasks. Under normal circumstances, this line right here is we're usually doing special agent, 1 sale, 1 buy, 1 rent, 1.
Joe, I have a question, right?
Yes, sir.
So,
Hi, Ulrich.
Hi. So a sales agent can also be a special agent and a general agent, right?
In this particular transaction, if you were the managing agent for a property, you are a general agent. If you rented out 1 unit only and you didn't do anything else for them, that's a special agent. But if you're renting out units every other day, there's another guy moving out and another guy moving in, and you're constantly putting tenants in and out for the same guy, we're not signing papers every single time. We have 1 management agreement and we're doing lots of different jobs. A special agent has 1 job: sell my house, find me a house, or sell my building, find me a building, whatever. Either 1 task: sell my property, find me a property. Landlord says, find me someone to occupy my space. And a tenant says, I need space, find me space. That's a single or special agent. Got it?
Right.
Did that clarify your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Make it
I mean,
worse.
I was going over the questions with Robin in the group, and I think there was a question that says, can a special agent be it's a question, but the answer was they can also be general agent and special agent at the same time. So
Yeah, but not for the same people.
oh, not for the same people.
Yeah, so I can manage property. I currently manage property, but we also do individual home sales. If I'm a general agent managing property, doesn't mean I can't sell homes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I can do both. If I'm selling single family homes and somebody says, hey, Joe, I want you to manage my 100-unit apartment building. Oh, sorry, I only sell homes. No, I can do both.
Oh,
I could be a general agent and a special agent at the same time.
Got
Just
it.
not for the same person. Right? If I'm a special agent, I'm only doing 1 thing. I'm selling somebody's house. Or I'm representing a buyer to buy somebody's house. Or I'm representing a landlord to look for a tenant. Or I'm representing a tenant to find a place to live.
So usually a sales agent is a special agent.
Usually an agent is a special agent, or you can do both. Ulrich, you're an agent and you sell houses all the time, right? You do 20, 30 deals a year. You're a great salesperson. And your Uncle Bob says, Ulrich, I got this, I'm getting old. This is a 30-unit apartment building. I know you're busy selling houses. Can you find time to manage this building as well? Of course, Uncle Bob. So now you are managing that property. You're still selling houses. So you're a general agent for Uncle Bob, and you're still a special agent for all the buyers and sellers that you're working for. Got it?
Gotcha.
Yes, got it. Perfect example.
John,
Great.
can you have more than one property manager per property?
For one property, no.
Only one, right? Okay.
Yeah, once you're the property manager, you've created agency, and now
you're
no
right.
other property can come in. They can fire you and bring somebody else in, but while you're there, you're it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Condominiums and co-ops, the rules, those deed restrictions or those restrictive covenants. We said in a co-op, the rules are called house rules. In a condominium, the same rules, the bylaws, are called CC&Rs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. You got to know the difference. You got to remember that.
Write that down. Oh, shoot.
Teshnet, are you driving or something that you keep coming in and out of here? Teshnet, what's the story? You're missing half the class. You paid for it. All right. Tax treatment. The IRS offers the owner of a cooperative unit the same income tax treatment as the owner of a condominium or single unit. But only condominium owners receive an individual tax bill directly for their unit. Co-ops don't get a tax bill. Co-ops get a rent bill, which is called monthly maintenance, right? What's the HOA fees? The monthly maintenance fees for a co-op is the maintenance plus the taxes for the entire building is divided up equally among the tenants. So your maintenance bill has the tax bill. You own a co-op, you don't get a tax bill for you. The building gets a bill and you pay it through your maintenance. It is deductible. That's why you get the same tax treatment. We looked online, and for weekend people, I'll be going online. I'll show you where the deduction is and how much you can deduct in the co-op and where to find it. But only condominiums get a tax bill for their unit. Co-ops don't get a tax bill. We transfer title to condominiums with a fee simple deed, just like any other real property. And co-ops, the title is transferred through a stock certificate. You actually are buying shares of stock in a corporation. You don't own real property. You're getting a stock certificate and a lease called a proprietary lease. As long as your payments are due, your rent is paid, you can live there indefinitely. It's a different type of lease altogether, not like another type of lease that we talked about, the 4 different types of leasehold estates. This proprietary lease doesn't have an end date. As long as you keep paying your rent indefinitely, you get to live there. It's pretty much as long as you live, because you can transfer the ownership of stock to someone else, but they basically have no value because the board has to approve whoever the new owner is. Okay. Condominiums, you have undivided interest in common areas. Remember that? You own your unit, and we use for an example, 100-unit apartment building. You own your unit from the walls in plus 1/100th of all the common areas. 1/100th of the swimming pool, 1/100th of the elevators, 1/100th of the lobby, hallways, stairways. You own that, right? And it's not 1/100th. If there's only 50 apartments, then you own 1/50th. If there's 20 units, you own 1/20th, et cetera, right? You own as tenants in common all the common areas with all the other owners. And there's 2 different types of common areas. There's just general common areas and then limited common areas. Common areas like the swimming pool and the parking garage, et cetera, those are common areas. The ones that you can use only are limited common areas, right? So you have a balcony on your unit, it's outside of your walls, right? We have from the walls in. The balcony is yours. No one can climb up onto your balcony and say, well, hey, it's common area, I can use it too. No, it's limited to that particular owner. You have a driveway in front of your garage, or you have an assigned parking spot, even though everybody owns the parking garage together, that one spot is a limited common area that only you can use. Ready, follow? Okay. In the reserves for replacements in condominiums, co-ops, etc., money in reserves is used to replace some of the major functions in the property, like the heating system, replace the roof, replace the windows, new siding, paving the parking lot, etc. All these things can be used, the reserves are for, okay? The buyer of condominium receives a deed conveying fee simple. There we go again. To reserve a unit in a condominium development, a new condominium development, a purchaser submits a letter of intent. We didn't build it yet. I can't put an offer in. I can't sign a contract. There's no building yet. So we file a letter of intent that says when it's built and it's done, I'll take it. That's a letter of intent. Okay. Condominiums file with the county clerk a declaration and floor plan for each unit. After the review, the preliminary prospectus, we told the county clerk and we filed with the Attorney General for the state of New York that we are going to convert this building into condominiums. We have to notify the tenants that we're doing this. What are we notifying them? By the way, tenant, you have an opportunity to purchase this unit at this price. That's called a red herring. Here's what we're going to do for you before you do it. We're going to relocate you. We're going to put a new kitchen in, new bathroom, new walls, new floors, hardwood floors, new windows, and we're going to move you back in there and you get to buy the unit. Here's how much it is, ground floor opportunity, and you have 3 months to make that decision whether you want it or not. That's called a red herring. I don't know who named all this stuff. Prior to 2008, the IRS 80-20 rule limited the amount of non-shareholder passive income earned by cooperatives. Cooperatives were generally a not-for-profit endeavor. The idea of the co-op is we only charge the amount of money we need to keep this place afloat. It's not a profit business. So investors that own these things want to make some profit. So the IRS in 2008 changed the rules and said you can now sell or rent out 20% of the property can be used for income producing property. You can actually make money on 20% of it as long as 80% of it is not for profit. That's called the Condo 80-20 rule. We're almost done. Wow. Insurance, we said, was called risk management. We have different types of policies. We have monoline policies, individual single line policies, and we also have packages. We went through some of those before. And so we said liability insurance. Liability insurance is somebody slips and falls, breaks a leg, etc. That's liability. Someone has to be responsible for that. We also said casualty insurance. Theft, burglary, vandalism, accident is all part of casualty insurance. We know those terms liability and casualty because we all drive cars. There's only one missing on a car. What's the one missing if you have a car? Collision, right? You pay for that. General basic insurance on a car is liability. That means you hurt somebody, you need to be insured for hurting someone else, right? Casualty, you crash into somebody else. You have to be responsible for that. So somebody breaks into my car, breaks into my house, vandalizes my car. I crash into something. That is casualty insurance. I do damage. Collision means I crashed into a tree and I want my money back because I can't sue me. You're going to pay me for that. Well, in home ownership, casualty insurance, somebody breaks in, they do damage, that's theft insurance is covered. They steal anything, burglary, theft, vandalism, they break in and they break stuff. They don't really steal anything, but they just smash a lot of stuff. They broke your door, smashed some windows, did damage, had a party in your house, whatever, or somebody has an accident in the house, causes damage inside the house, casualty insurance. Okay, those are some of the basic things we need to know. We also covered some of the other items in there. Certificate of insurance, we said, was a proof of insurance. We also talked about actual cash value and replacement cost. Remember that? Weekend people, you don't know this yet. Okay, so actual cash value versus replacement cost, the difference between the two. Replacement cost is replacing the covered item at the cost of what it would cost to actually replace it. Actual cash value is what it would cost to replace it minus depreciation. Because yes, I can really appreciate that you have a very expensive leather couch, but actual cash value, it's 20 years old. You might have spent $10,000 on it 20 years ago, but with depreciation, it is worth, here's $100, $200 for your couch. Replacement cost is not taking out depreciation. It is a $10,000 couch. Go ahead and buy yourself a new couch. Here's the money. Go replace what you had with, replace it with what you had. Residential claims have a co-insurance clause we talked about as well. It requires that the insured, the person that bought the house, owns the property, maintains fire insurance on the property equal to at least 80% of the replacement cost of the building. 80% of the cost means 20% is land, it doesn't burn, the structure burns down. They need you to have at least enough insurance to put the structure back, right? That's called a co-insurance clause on any building or dwelling. If insurance providers refuse coverage, why would they do that? They can refuse coverage due to results in a loss run schedule. The loss run schedule is used to determine issuing insurance. What is that? That's a history of every claim you put in. So you want to buy insurance and you go to, Liberty Mutual, Liberty. It's just so burned in your head, those commercials, right? Liberty Insurance, and you go there and they say, oh, let's pull up a loss run schedule. Oh, we see that you've put in 15 claims in the last 10 years. Sorry, we don't want to insure you. So insurance providers may refuse coverage due to results in a loss run schedule. Now we're into math. Last chapter, we're done. Income, rate, and value. That's what IRV stands for. Remember IRV? IRV formula? It's going to say, what does IRV stand for? It stands for income, rate, and value. Let's look at property transfer tax. We said that property transfer tax is $4 per thousand. Let me ask you a question. Who am I going to ask? Ilona, how many thousands are there in 237,550? How many thousands are in there?
237.
237 of them, right? So 237, 550, that's not 1,000, right? That's not 1,000 yet. If you keep adding to 550, eventually that'll be 238. So 237, let me see, is it in there? No, 237, 550 is actually 237. $237.550, right? Times how much?
$4.
$4 per thousand. So what's 237.550 times 4?
$948.
$948.
Yeah.
Is that what you got? Even?
No,
No, it's 950.
952, 950.2.
237.
50.20.
Two.
Oh, 1,000.
Yeah. 950.20. That would be the transfer tax on $237,550. Got it?
Yes.
Everybody understand that nice, easy math? That exact, I'm not saying that's the number, but that exact type of question is going to be on the test. Not
And
similar.
it wouldn't be like a
Yeah.
house from 1920 where the transfer
This
tax
is
was.
exactly what it's
Okay,
going to be.
got
A
Got
house
it.
sold for 230, if not 237,550, but a house sold for $237,550. How much was the property transfer tax? Here's a clue. They're not going to tell you it's $4 per thousand.
Oh, wow.
You have to remember that part. Okay? Times 4, not 0.4. $4 is 4.
But you said per thousand, so you have to
Yeah.
add that.
You guys freak out over math. Go ahead. Say
I
it again,
just-
Sam.
No, I'm saying you said per thousand, so you don't add the 550, right? Oh, you do.
The 550 is a decimal point, 237.550
Oh, okay, so you
multiplied
do it.
by 4.
Okay. I
It's
see. You
because-
do that. Okay.
Yeah, it's because it had 237,000.
237 is the amount of
Thousand.
thousands.
Yeah.
550 is a portion of 1,000, otherwise known
I
as.
see. No, I
Okay.
thought you don't use that 550. Okay.
No, we'll use that. Okay. Ilona, were you showing me a calculator? What were you showing me?
Yes, I was asking if they gonna,
That's a great calculator. Simple
Ah.
calculator. They're gonna see.
I
what
got
kind
the
of calculator
simplest
you have.
one.
That's the cheapest, best one. That's the one
I
they like.
know. It's so funny. I
They don't
got
like
the
any
cheapest
other
one
kind.
and the simplest
Sam,
one.
I don't think you can use that one, Sam. I don't think you can.
No.
use
No, I
that
know.
calculator.
It's all I have right now.
No,
Yeah, I
I
have
can't
that
use
one
that.
too, and I got to
Yeah.
pay $100 for it.
You
but I
can't
need to get
use
a
your
simple
cell
one.
phone.
It's like 20 years old. Still going.
Yeah, go to 7-Eleven and go grab one. This is no good either.
Yeah.
Can't use that one.
Joe,
I
can I use
have
this
them.
one?
I usually bring a bunch when I proctor. Yeah, that's good. I usually bring a bunch when I proctor the exam. I don't have any handy on me right here, but I usually bring a few when I'm proctoring the exam.
Joe, look,
Yes.
is this good? This one?
It's just plus, minus, divided, and subtraction, and
Yep.
division. That's it. Okay, in the classroom. Can't use your cell phone. Cell phone's got to be off the whole time. All right, we got that? You got to remember the $4 per thousand part. They're not going to give you
Yeah.
the part.
Can you
Okay.
repeat the question again, how it's going to be?
I just did, right there. A home sold for $237,550. How much was the transfer tax?
Transfer tax, okay.
See, transfer tax.
Yeah, okay.
And when it says how much was the transfer tax, we wouldn't put it's $4 per thousand. We would do the math.
You got the choice, you're gonna get A, B, C, and D, and it's gonna be a math answer. It's gonna be a
Right.
number answer.
That's when we multiply whatever number by the transfer tax, which is $4 per thousand.
Okay, so I'm looking right at your test and it says, what is the amount of New York State transfer tax to be paid on the sale of a property for blank? I'm not giving you the number.
Okay. Oh,
Just hear that question. makes
what are
me-
the
How easy is that? We
What
just
is
showed you how to do it.
Timberlake,
Just put
that's
in
what
the
he's
new
doing.
number. All right. You
What
just
is
put
the
in the
answer?
new
Give
number.
us the answer.
Next. Okay, just remember the area of a rectangle. It's not even going to be an issue here. Width times depth. The first number when you talk about the width is the street number, the road front. The depth is how deep it goes into the property.
Right.
Okay, so here's a front foot. Front footage is the portion of the lot that faces the street. The front foot is the first number. So we have 105 by 125. 105 is the front footage. So just to give you an idea, the sale price of a property was $176,000. what was the price per front foot? So we have 176,000 divided by what?
105.
105, because it's 105 front feet. So how much did it sell per front foot?
1,600.
676 and 19
19
cents
cents.
per front foot.
It's just
Got
the
it.
105 that we're gonna use, right?
Not bad.
It's simple.
It is very simple stuff.
It
You're gonna
look
use the first number
like,
and multiply it by the sales price.
yeah.
Just got to remember which number you're using, because they're not going to tell you that 105 is the front foot. They're going to say 105 by 125. If you divide by 125, you're going to get the wrong answer. And believe me, the wrong answer is in the choices. It's always in the choices. If you do it wrong, the wrong answer is there. When we're doing a triangular shape,
Yep.
a triangle is half of any rectangle. So if a width times depth, 200 times 350, it is 200 times 350 divided by 2, because you put a line right down the middle, it's exactly half. If you had a rectangle, this triangle is exactly half as a rectangle. You don't need to do that anyway. Land units of measurement, just to have on there. Remember an acre? They're
Yes.
not going to ask you that.
or
Maybe New York
a-
State will ask you. It's 43,560. She told you how to remember that one.
Yeah,
408,
right,
35 or
right,
60.
35,
60.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
the only part that I keep on my mind from her.
That. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot
that-
more than I was. Put it that way.
All right, you're ready. Okay, now I'm going to get a different test out of the drawer here, and we're going to do some questions. Okay?
Okay.
Hang on, I got lots.
New one,
Yeah.
please.
Don't go too far, yo.
Not too bad. Recent.
Okay, all right, and also I'm going to
Pick.
say goodbye for recording purposes. Goodbye.
Bye, yo.